Delivering a punch with all his might, our protagonist trains hard in the gym. At that point, the people around were shocked, commenting that just looking at it hurt. Until a colleague praises his progress and asks if the kid has reached the micro level yet. To quickly explain, this micro-level training is only the second of 5 levels of martial arts mastery in this world. Then the friend reinforces that in the entire class, no one compares to our boy's talent. But being addicted to training, the little pro ignores the advice to rest and continues punching the air. Out of patience, the colleague gives up on keeping him company and leaves to go eat. Shortly after, the boy says goodbye to the teacher, who tells him to put on a shirt before leaving. Suddenly, the old man stops him and asks about enrolling in the martial arts department. Then the master drops the bombshell, asking why the young man hasn't yet paid the 30,000 fee since it closes on Monday. Sweating profusely, our hero begs for a few more days. However, the professor laments, saying that he is aware of his family's financial situation, but rules are rules. Frustrated by the pressure, the boy throws a violent punch in the air, thinking about the absurd amount of money he needs to raise. Looking back at the past, we discover that his parents died in a wild animal attack when he was only 3 years old. Since then, the poor boy has lived with his uncles, who have always supported his training with great sacrifice. In this world dominated by monsters, being a martial artist is the only profession that pays well. But our boy feels like a burden for making his uncle's lives even more difficult. Arriving at the humble village where he lives, night has already fallen and the atmosphere is tense. Standing at the door, he listens to his uncles talking about delaying the rent to pay his registration fee. Even though they are struggling financially, the uncle insists that his nephew's talent is worthwhile and that they cannot hold back the boy's future. To make matters worse, the old man says he's going to stop taking his medication to save money, while the aunt promises to find another job. Hearing all this from outside, our protagonist's face is heavy with guilt. Swallowing his tears, he opens the door, disguising his sadness with a smile. While greeting the two, he hears his worried aunt asking why he arrived so late and telling him to get some rest. Quickly, the woman pushes the boy into the room, telling him not to worry about adult things. Lying in bed, the boy decides that his uncles have already sacrificed too much and that he will solve this money problem on his own. Thinking quickly, he remembers that there's only one place for a martial artist to earn tens of thousands in just a few days. The next day, the scene changes to an imposing and very luxurious building. Going down to the basements, we see an underground fighting arena where the announcer proclaims that it's win or die. Straight to the ring, the presenter calls the current champion, nicknamed Minotaur. Sporting a bizarre mask, this Minotaur only needs one more victory to take home 60,000. In the audience, people start gossiping about the rookie challenger who just stepped onto the stage. Meanwhile, the blonde with the microphone tells the newcomer to get the crowd going and set the arena on fire. Even the big opponent warns him that he needs to insult the crowd to put on a show, and our kid says he got the message. Without thinking twice, the little protagonist lets out an arrogant shout, declaring that he is invincible and challenging everyone to a fight. Soon the crowd goes wild, calling the boy arrogant and betting that he'll leave there in a body bag. With the atmosphere heating up, the big screen lights up and the match officially begins. Faced with his rival's murderous intent, our hero realizes that the situation is more serious than it seems, but he wants to test his real punches. Without wasting any time, the man in the bull mask lunges forward, calling the boy a brat. Analyzing the movement in the blink of an eye, the protagonist notices that the guy's base is completely unstable and easy to break. At that point, the brute throws an angry cross, asking why the kid is daydreaming. Our hero easily dodges the fatal blow with absurd agility. Taking advantage of the opening, he plunges his palm directly into the villain's stomach. With the brutal impact, the giant flies far away and falls, smashing everything outside the combat area. Shocking everyone, the victory is declared, and our boy is already shouting at the top of his lungs, asking for the next one. Delighted by the scene, the entire audience screams, excited by the newcomer's strength. Immediately, a wrestler wearing giant glasses comes up saying that the kid was lucky, but now the fun is over. Maintaining his composure, the protagonist urges him to go all out, since the guy's physique is perfect for testing his technique. Running like a madman, the Four Eyes charges forward to crush his opponent. This time our boy doesn't swerve, and the two bump fists in a shocking collision. Feeling the impact, the big guy mentally celebrates, thinking that the kid's strength is less than his own. Overconfident, he delivers another devastating punch, aiming for the protagonist's head. But our hero gives a sadistic little smile, realizing that the guy has let his guard down completely at the waistline. Taking advantage of the hesitation, he lands a knee strike and a combo punch that destroys the enemy's defense. Once again, the opponent is thrown out of the ring like a rag doll, leaving the audience speechless. With 2 consecutive victories under his belt, the little pro doesn't want to take a break and is already calling for his next victim. Meanwhile, the arena's big screen updates the scoreboard, showing that the boy is dominating the event. In the VIP box, the underworld bosses are watching everything and commenting that this fighter is no ordinary apprentice. After the kid secured his 3rd easy victory, the suit-wearing executive decided he was the perfect bait to manipulate the bets. Quickly, a henchman wearing a fox mask volunteers to fight, and the boss orders him to hide the fact that he is already a trained martial arts master. Wiping away the sweat, our boy focuses on the goal, knowing that there's only one more fight left to get his hands on 60,000. But the audience is shocked to see that the infamous White Fox is the one stepping into the ring. Complaining of injustice, the audience whispers that pitting a near master against an apprentice is pure cowardice. Feeling the overwhelming pressure from his opponent, the protagonist understands that the situation has become serious, but he cannot back down. On the other side, the masked man in a suit smiles like someone who has already won. Mocking the kid, the villain tells him not to be afraid because he's going to go easy on the punches. Cutting off the conversation, the announcer announces the final battle, where everything is at stake. As soon as the gong strikes, the 2 of them dash toward each other at an astonishing speed. Knowing he's at a disadvantage, our boy decides he needs to use maximum force right from the first move. In the middle of the ring, fists collide, creating an absurd shockwave. Taking the jolt, the little protagonist realizes right away that this strength doesn't belong to just any fighter. Shocked, he discovers that the masked man is a complete martial arts master who is hiding his true power. Without giving him time to breathe, the villain gasps for air, preparing his special attack. Unleashing a thunderous technique, the White Fox bombards our hero with a devastating sequence of punches. Spitting blood and flying backward, the kid feels the terrifying force of a true master, and things get ugly for him. Witnessing the massacre, the audience declares that the Minotaur is finished. Without mercy, the White Fox advances, mocking and asking if the boy only knows how to defend himself. Holding back the blows, our protagonist realizes he's going to lose badly if he continues like this. Desperate, the hero tries to find an opening to counterattack. But the enemy's speed is insane, and a brutal punch lands squarely on his face. With the violent impact, our boy is thrown to the ground of the arena. Feeling his vision blurring, the boy's consciousness begins to fade little by little. Stepping on the defeated man, the villain warns him that he won't get a single cent from this fight. Immediately afterwards, the man in the suit whispers that the boss wants to recruit the boy to manipulate results. Threatening him bluntly, the masked man tells him to think carefully because refusal is not an option. Furious at the cowardice, the little protagonist shouts, questioning whether they really call themselves martial artists. Sighing with boredom, the White Fox concludes that there is nothing more to discuss. Determined to end it all, the villain prepares a move to cripple our hero once and for all. At that point, the boy's perspective changes completely, consumed by the obsession of becoming a true master. But a merciless kick strikes his body before he can react. Drawing strength from beyond, our boy rises enveloped in a sinister aura, declaring that he cannot fall there. Completely shocked, the enemy doesn't understand how the kid survived the special attack. Remembering his uncles, the little protagonist vows that he will not let the family's sacrifice be in vain. Denying defeat, he shouts that he will never accept a failed future. Suddenly, a mysterious screen appears in his mind, asking what he is willing to sacrifice for victory. Screaming with hatred in his heart, the hero replies that he will hand over absolutely everything. Immediately, the system takes its toll, and his body explodes in pure energy. Confused, the boy wakes up in a dark and bizarre space inside his own head. Looking around, he wonders what kind of crazy place this is. Until a giant, bright entity appears in front of him, floating out of nowhere. Without saying a word, the divine figure points its finger in the direction of our hero. Suddenly, a beam of golden light engulfs the boy whole. When the light dims, several holographic screens begin to pop up in the air. Focusing on the main panel, he notices that it's a status screen with all his attributes and skills. Curious, our protagonist touches the panel and discovers that the thing works just like a cell phone screen. Clicking a flashing button activates the system's first mission. Reading the instructions, he discovers that he needs to elevate his techniques to the micro level in this tutorial phase. Intrigued by this beginner's guide talk, a bright silhouette emerges from nowhere. In the blink of an eye, the figure reveals itself to be an exact clone of our protagonist. Without warning, the copy charges forward using the punch the kid practices the most. Startled, the hero realizes that the clone executes the move perfectly and flawlessly. Excited by the opportunity, he decides to use the copy as a private tutor. Holding back the heavy attack, he feels the pressure of the well-executed technique. Exchanging frantic punches, the boy understands that the system is demonstrating the movement in practice. But due to a careless mistake, he takes a direct hit to the chest and flies far away. Surprisingly, a notification informs him that his domain name has risen by 10% in that hour. Shocked by the speed, he recalls that before it took months to climb even a little. Smiling confidently, he realizes that virtual space is the biggest scam for leveling up quickly. Extremely focused on training, he returns to a stand-up exchange with his own copy. While picking up and hitting the system windows, they show the skills leveling up at an absurd speed. Numerous notifications pop up on the screen, confirming that the kid is turning into a monster. Soon the light palm technique reaches the anticipated micro level. Next, the steps of emptiness also arrive at the same power marker. To finish with a flourish, his main punch transcends the micro and achieves total mastery. Gasping for breath and dripping with sweat, our protagonist finally stops fighting in that dark void. Upon receiving congratulations from the system, he agrees to return to the real world immediately. Back in the arena, almost no time had passed, and the villain was still in front of him. Irritated by the boy's pose, the masked man advances, cursing and promising to end the mystery. Once again, with the thunder attack, the fox attempts a knockout, but the boy dodges everything without breaking a sweat. Mockingly, the hero fixes his gaze on the enemy and says too slow to provoke him. His eyes widening, the man in the suit panics as he watches the ultimate coup fail. Without mercy, the little protagonist delivers a devastating punch that shatters the mask and dignity of the guy. Seeing the martial arts master being humiliated, the entire audience falls into a deathly silence. Triumphant, our boy stands facing the outstretched body of his unconscious opponent in the ring. Ignoring the tense atmosphere, he turns to the announcer and casually demands the money for his fourth victory. Up in the VIP box, the underworld boss chokes on his wine, shocked by the kid's absurd mastery. Immediately, the mobster orders his henchmen to follow the boy to find out who he is. Walking calmly down a dark alley, our protagonist carries the winnings he calmly received. But with his heightened senses, he soon realizes that there are strange people following him. Turning the corner, the two men in suits sneak into the street looking for their target. Confused, the henchmen stop in the middle of the alley, not understanding where the fighter disappeared to. Hidden high above like Spider-Man, the boy laughs at the slowness of the spies down below. An hour later, the scene changes to our hero's humble home. Startled by the amount of money, the uncles stare at the mountain of cash and ask if the boy robbed a bank. Making up an excuse, the protagonist lies that the dojo master decided to sponsor his talent because he is too good. With an angelic face, he asks if his own family doesn't trust his word. Believing the lie, the uncle bursts into laughter, praising his nephew's promising future as he would never lie to them. Outside, the night remains calm in the simple suburban village. Sitting on the roof, the boy breathes a sigh of relief, having solved the registration, the rent, and his aunt's medicine all at once. Analyzing the system screen, he is grateful to be alive but notices that his physical attributes remain low, and he needs to train his body more. While exploring the interface, our boy notices that victories yield martial value points to spend as he pleases. Wanting to test the new feature, he clicks the plus button and pours the points into the vitality attribute. At that same moment, the value jumps to 90, and his body reacts instantly. With wide eyes, the little protoprot feels a monstrous energy coursing through its veins. With a red aura covering his body, his muscles swell and become locked into shape. Impressed by the result, he notes that he has reached the physical level of a near martial artist in the blink of an eye. Without mercy, the kid burns through the rest of his points on vitality to become even more muscular. Admiring his ripped abs, he realizes that even the wounds from the fight have vanished into thin air, and now he needs a place to punch and test his newfound strength. Leaping from building to building, the hero traverses the city in the middle of the night with ninja-like agility. His fate soon becomes clear when he lands in front of the school that has a combat power measuring machine. Standing in front of the heavy-duty machine, he prepares to deliver the punch of his life. Clenching his fists tightly, he decides to use only 70% of his strength so as not to draw too much attention. With a bloodthirsty look, the boy focuses everything on a single point. With a violent bang, his fist strikes the center of the testing machine squarely. Startled, the boy feels the impact ricochet off his own arm. Looking at the machine in pieces, the boy panics, afraid he'll have to pay for the damage to the thing that couldn't withstand the impact. Hearing footsteps and shouts from guards in the night, he puts his legs to work and leaps out of the courtyard. Arriving at the crime scene, the janitor curses the wretch who broke the steel machine and blames the unruly students. Furious, the old man vows to give those responsible a beating as soon as classes begin. The following morning, the school gymnasium is packed with all the students gathered together. Gossiping in the crowd, the group comments that the principal punished 2 students for destroying the machine in the early morning. Hiding a guilty smile, our protagonist listens to his friends complain about taking the blame and tells them to be quiet. On stage, the director takes the microphone and announces a guest of honor, a level 3 martial arts master, to give a special lesson. Shocked, the students whisper that learning from a guy of that caliber would cost a fortune elsewhere. Discovering the technique of the day, the hero recognizes the thunder punch that nearly killed him the previous night, and is amazed by the power of the strike in the demonstration. Calculating quickly, he realizes that this is a golden opportunity to learn a sea-level move for free just by using the system's screen. Cutting to the chase, the master announces that he will perform the technique 10 times slowly so that the group can try to follow along. Firing his fists, the old man explains that the power of this blow is based on the thunderous sound of each perfect punch. Explaining the levels, the professor says that from beginner to master, the number of bangs increases up to 7 consecutive sounds. Focused on the invisible holographic screen, the boy watches closely to copy the old man's every move. Warning that newcomers shouldn't have high expectations, the older man tries to calm the excited students. Starting the second set of demonstrations, he unleashes a deafening sequence while the kids try to copy him. Hours later, the group is sprawled on the gym floor complaining that the technique is impossible to catch. Even our protagonist's friend gives up, breathless, thinking the scam isn't for them. Looking around, the colleague notices that the little proto-animal has disappeared and hears a monstrous noise coming from afar. On the court, a student celebrates reaching the basic level and lets out a thunderous sound, earning praise from the teacher. Rushing to flatter the rich kid, the principal extols the boy's talent, calling him the #1 genius in the school. But the martial arts master breaks the tension by saying that the kid is just okay, and that he was hoping to find a real prodigy there. Disheartened, the old man strolls through the courtyard with the director, agreeing that talent is everything in this cruel world of farming. Suddenly, a bizarre sequence of thunder echoes from behind the trees, drawing the attention of the 2 old men. Striking a shock of reality, the master hears 7 sounds and shouts that someone there has reached the highest level of expertise in the technique. Peering over the wall, the old men see from afar that it is a student tearing through the air with perfect punches, enveloped in electricity. The teacher doesn't believe it and realizes he miscalculated because the boy actually let out an incredible 9 thunder sounds, breaking the absolute record. With a sinister smile of excitement, the old man finally finds the prodigy he was hunting. Clenching his fist tightly, our hero's energy overflows. Unleashing the full attack, the little Protanha shatters the sound barrier, proving that it has mastered the sea-level strike. Trembling with emotion, the old master says that seeing the boy execute the technique made him understand the flaws in his own move after years of stagnation. Ordering the principal to hurry, the old man begs to find out who that miraculous student is. But when the 2 turn the corner, the courtyard was already empty, and the genie had vanished into thin air. Walking down the street, our hero complains that training a technique like that consumes a lot of energy, unlike more basic strikes. Checking the system, he is happy to see the thunder skill at the perfect level and realizes he needs to find more fights to level up his physical attributes. Stopping at the door of a large dojo, he remembers that he had arranged to show up there to practice. Entering the hall, the fighting is in full swing with several students training with spears flying everywhere. Soon his friend bumps into him and asks what he was doing there on a normal day. Then a boy with purple hair throws an opponent to the ground with an aggressive and unnecessary stomp. Thinking he's the king of the hill, the purple-haired kid insults the fallen student, calling him trash, and makes up excuses to lose. Explaining the mess, the friend tells our boy that this stuck-up guy is a disciple of the new teacher who only mistreats the poor newcomers. While they gossip, the shadows of the 2 draw attention on the court, and the arrogant kid locks his gaze with them. Charging in, the purple-haired guy points his fist at our protagonist's face, challenging him to a fight right then and there. Without backing down an inch, the hero also clenches his fists, and the energy in the room instantly changes temperature. Holding the arm of the cocky kid, our boy tells him to stop the nonsense right there. Annoyed by the audacity, the purple-haired man orders him to be released and says that if he has the courage, he should step into the ring right away. Before the fight breaks out, the posh teacher arrives shouting and ordering everyone to line up for class. Pulling his arm back, the bully grumbles that the protagonist got lucky this time and returns to his place. With a grimace, our hero concludes that the guy with purple hair is arrogant to the core. Grabbing the spear, the cocky master announces that this is the last day he will teach the sea dragon spear technique, and that he will give only one quick demonstration. In a fluid and showy movement, the old man spins the weapon, cutting through the air and eliciting gasps from the crowd in the back. Finishing with a pose, he mocks, saying that he highly doubts that that bunch of losers can learn anything just by watching. While the other students are lost, our boy focuses his eyes and the system copies the technique instantly, like a download. As the master gives the order to train, he walks away while the sycophantic disciple boasts that he understood everything. Complaining quietly, the students in the back of the room say that a single demonstration is a low blow and impossible to grasp. Holding his own spear, our protagonist recalls the exact posture, focusing on the weight and the balance, just like the giant waves the professor taught. Closing his eyes, he feels the energy flow from his arm to the tip of the wood in a perfect fit. With a violent lunge, the hero pierces the air, creating a roar that silences the entire dojo instantly. Watching the scene, the students, with their mouths agape, shout that the boy learned it on the first try and question whether they are too stupid to understand the trick. Amidst the shouting, the crowd asks what the boy is doing standing there pretending to understand something about the master's move. Ignoring the taunts, our hero pulls the spear back with the force of a hurricane, preparing the attack. Observing from the corner, the prim and proper teacher notices the student's posture and murmurs that the brat seems to have really got the hang of it and wants to test the limits of his talent. Calling the boy's attention, the older man says he's going to give some practical tips and tells everyone to move away from the central ring. Quickly, the students open a Ferris wheel, terrified of getting hit, leaving only the two of them in the middle of the hall. Worried, the friend whispers to the protagonist that the master's character is awful and his strength is brutal, urging him not to do anything foolish. Holding the spear with both hands, the hero advances, facing the master directly and asking to be enlightened by the technique. Mocking the boy, the teacher calls him arrogant and unleashes a micro-level attack, tearing the ground with a slash. Keeping his cool, the boy analyzes the blade's trajectory without blinking, while the wind ruffles his hair. At that point, our protagonist returns the attack, clashing head-on with the proficient version of the strike covered in bluish energy. His eyes widening, the old man is shocked to see the force of the attack repel his own blow with extreme ease. With the spear spinning, the boy breaks through the teacher's defense and charges like a bulldozer over him. Upon impact, the two spears clashed with a deafening clang of metal against wood, sending sparks flying everywhere. Being dragged backward, the master despairs, wondering how any ordinary student could possibly possess so much firepower. In a violent jolt, the shockwave throws the professor's body into the air as he loses his footing, completely unbalanced. Pulling the spear back, the boy internally celebrates his victory while the system screen notifies him that he has earned more martial points. Fallen to his knees on the ground, the arrogant master mutters that it's impossible and refuses to accept that he lost to a random student who used his own technique against him. Trembling with rage, the old man thinks about all the years he trained hard only to be humiliated by a brat in a second. Completely losing control, the professor lunges forward with a clenched fist, yelling that his hard work cannot be considered trash. Before the punch landed, a gruff voice shouted from the back of the dojo, ordering them to stop that nonsense immediately. Trembling, the master swallows hard and calls for the dojo owner, who has just entered the hall with the security guards. Pulling the teacher's ear, the boss slaps him on the back of the neck, saying he's a disgrace for not accepting defeat. Impressed by the boy, the dojo owner thinks that not even the geniuses from the capital can learn a technique so quickly just by watching it once. Apologizing to the protagonist, the suited boss says that the professor acted childishly and apologizes for the whole mess. Tired of the charade, our hero looks away, finding the old man very false and deceitful. Leaving the dojo at night, the boy walks down the street, somewhat tired but satisfied with the day's training. Looking at the holographic screen, he counts the new skills he has mastered, and the martial points he has accumulated that are booming. Thinking about the upcoming school test, he remembers that rich kids use metal alloy weapons to fight, and he also needs one so he doesn't fall behind. Turning his wrist, he reflects that the spear he used back at the dojo was good, and decides he wants to buy a decent weapon for himself. But soon reality comes knocking, and the boy sighs heavily upon seeing the absurd price of 60,000 for an alloy spear when the money he has barely covers his aunt's medicine. Standing in front of the shop window, the boy leans against the glass, wondering where he's going to get more money now. Looking at the street news board, he sees an advertisement from the city government paying fortunes for hunting ferocious beasts in the vicinity of the wall. Turning his face away and making a quick decision, the little protagonist understands that the fastest way to get rich is by killing monsters in the forest. Arriving home, the aunt scolds her uncle, who returned covered in bandages, and tells him to rest since the money her nephew gave her last time saved the bills. Entering the room and hearing the scolding, our hero announces his arrival and greets the family with a disguised smile. Immediately, the aunt asks for the boy's bag and tells him to relax while she prepares dinner for everyone. Pressing his uncle's shoulder, the boy asks him to stop risking his life with dangerous odd jobs and to take care of his own health because now he's the man of the house. Smiling awkwardly, the uncle beats his chest, saying that he's tough and can't stay still all day. Cutting to the chase, the aunt laughs and tells her nephew that they want to save money for his future in martial arts. Shaking hands and silently promising, the boy realizes that the only way his uncles can retire in peace is if he becomes filthy rich. Convinced of his own plan, the boy swears to himself that he will not let the opportunity to hunt the beasts pass him by for anything. Focused on survival, he knows the desert is too dangerous and decides to use all his accumulated vitality points at once to become a war tank. With a burst of energy, the value rises to 95, and his body glows with a pulsating reddish aura of pure physical strength and absurd resistance. 2 days later, the boy continues training hard at school, completely mastering all the techniques in the arsenal to the perfect level without mercy or pity. Taking a deep breath and with his confidence sky high, the boy feels that the time has come to cross the city walls. By the weekend, the boy finally reaches the Star City Marshal base, complaining that the place is too far from the center. Crossing the giant gates for the first time, he looks around, impressed by the size of the thing he only ever saw on TV. Walking through the crowded courtyard, the hero notices that martial artists who are rare on the streets are now walking around in droves, carrying greatswords and axes everywhere. Reading the hunting manual, he discovers the price list where level 1 monsters are worth 800 coins and level 2 monsters jump to 5,000 each. When the boy gets to the macabre rule about payment, his eyes widen as he reads that he needs to cut off the animal's left ear to prove it was killed. Peeking at someone else's negotiation, he sees a hunter handing a bloody bag to a young woman at the counter to settle the accounts. Suddenly, the crowd starts pushing and shoving, shouting to clear a path for some well-dressed men to casually walk across the street. Pulling up his hood, one rookie asks the other if he hasn't seen that the wealthy young master of the city has just arrived with his bodyguards. Looking to the side, our protagonist recognizes the tacky suit and notices that the young master's clothes and manner are very reminiscent of the white fox from the fighting arena. Listening to the gossip among the group, he discovers that the rich kid has been missing after getting a nasty beating a few days ago. Concealing his interest, the boy turns his face away so as not to get into trouble with the gang of thugs passing by. At that same moment, the young blonde master gives a sadistic smile to nothingness, thinking himself the king of the hill with his bodyguards surrounding him. Sighing, the little protagonist understands that a place with lots of rich and armed people is usually more dangerous than the desert itself, full of animals. Thinking to himself, the boy decides he needs to be careful of monsters and treacherous humans in the forest. Upon reaching the main gate, a guard checks the boy's age and finds it strange that he wants to go outside alone, but ends up letting the silent hero through. Looking at the boy's back, the guard shakes his head and sighs, calling the boy just another ignorant brat who will die young in the forest. Stepping onto the grass outside the walls for the first time, the protagonist's shoe firmly stamps the wild ground. Entering the dense forest, he looks at the sun's rays filtering through the giant treetops and breathes in the pure air mixed with danger. Focusing on the objective, the hero clenches his fist and repeats to himself that he will not return home empty-handed under any circumstances. 2 hours walking into the woods, the silence of the place begins to bother you while the wind gently rustles the leaves. Stopping and looking around, the boy is puzzled that he hasn't encountered any monsters yet, and wonders if they've already killed everything at the edge of the forest. Quickening his pace, he decides that the only way to find prey is by plunging into the deepest and darkest parts of the dense jungle. Suddenly, a rustling in the leaves catches his attention, and a giant, silver wolf leaps from the shadows, snorting and locking its red eyes onto the boy. Recognizing the creature from the theoretical classes, he concludes that it is an entry-level infernal moon wolf, and is excited to see a real one for the first time. With its fur bristling, the monstrous wolf lets out a sinister growl, baring its sharp, drooling teeth, ready to devour its fresh lunch. With a sharp howl, the monster lunges forward at an absurd speed, breaking branches in its path toward the hero's throat. Dodging at the last second, our boy escapes the deadly claws of the wolf that tear through the air with the force of invisible blades. Spinning his body with agility, the boy escapes the area attack while the wolf grazes past his jacket, tearing chunks of fabric with ease. Firmly planting his feet on the ground and concentrating brutal energy in his right arm, the protagonist prepares the first real counterattack, focused head-on on the danger in the middle of the dense undergrowth. Covering his fist with electric sparks, the boy yells and plunges a thunderous punch straight into the beast's snout at the speed of light, brutally throwing the wolf backward, and the brawl begins. Thrown far away, the monstrous wolf howls in pain, spinning in the air before crashing into the trees. Seconds later, the animal lies stretched out lifeless on the ground with a broken neck and smoke billowing from its singed fur. Trembling with adrenaline, our hero looks at his own fist, marveling at the thrill of fighting a real monster and feeling brute force in action. Encouraged by the easy victory, he celebrates taking down a low-level monster with a single punch, and is already curious to test his own strength against mid-level monsters. As if summoning danger, a rabid mid-level black bear leaps from the bushes, roaring and tearing the earth with its giant claws. Noticing the size difference, the kid swallows hard and prepares for a full-blown brawl against the hairy wall of muscles. Sometime later, the scene cuts to the bear lying unconscious on the ground with the boy standing on top of the carcass, covered in blood and panting. Panting but overjoyed, the little protagonist rips off the bear's ear and puts it in his backpack, already calculating the extra 3,000 he's pocketed. At this point, the system beeps, indicating that he has accumulated enough martial points to upgrade his attributes and advance to the next level. But before he could click on the holographic screen, a shrill roar cut through the silence of the forest, making the ground tremble violently. Looking back in fright, the boy senses an overwhelming, murderous aura, and wonders what kind of bizarre monster has such a strong presence. Without wasting any time, he jumps from branch to branch following the sound to investigate where all the commotion is coming from. Hidden behind a rock, he observes the scene from afar, and his eyes widen in astonishment at the size of the creature. There in the middle of the clearing, a giant black jade python of advanced level rises monstrously, hissing and ready to strike. Even more shocking, the boy sees a group of hunters being decimated by the giant snake as they scream in despair trying to block the brutal attacks. With a flick of its tail, the python throws the group's leader against the stone wall, breaking his bones like twigs. Destroying the defensive formation, the snake tears open the earth and swallows one of the shield bearers whole in a single movement. Amazed by the monster's agility, our hero notices that the creature is very fast for its absurd size. Seconds later, the snake finishes the massacre by throwing the last survivor of the hunting group far away. Looking at the carcasses sprawled on the ground, the python realizes that the team leader dropped his weapon before dying. Wiping the blood from his face, our protagonist decides to leave his hiding place with a serious and focused look. Picking up the dead man's spear from the ground, the boy asks to borrow the weapon, promising to avenge the man's death. Coming face to face with the monster, the boy wields the spear with both hands, and the giant snake focuses its reptilian eyes on him. Screaming furiously, the python lunges forward with its mouth open, wanting to make the hero the dessert of the day. But the little protagonist doesn't back down and sets up the attack, knowing that even if it's an advanced creature, it has the perfect techniques to level the playing field. With a monumental leap, the boy escapes the fatal bite while the snake slithers quickly, attempting to strike again. Using the steps of the void, he floats in the air, dodging the attack, and affirms to himself that he can withstand the exchange with the beast. Focusing his energy at the tip of the spear, he unleashes the Stormy Sea technique, tearing through the darkness of the forest with a strong bluish glow. Landing the first blow on the snake's scale, the impact generates a dry thud but doesn't penetrate properly. Feeling pain but not too much, the python becomes truly irritated and lets out a sinister hiss, spinning its body to retaliate against the human's audacity. Whipping its tail like a whip, the snake tries to smash the boy against the ground, but he blocks the blow using his spear as a shield. Being pushed back by brute force, the boy drags his feet on the ground, aware of the beast's absurd power. With blood in his eyes, he shouts that he will not give up and charges again with his spear raised. Unleashing even more energy, he strings together another sequence of thrusts using the rough seed technique, hitting the same spot he struck before. Hitting the target, he notices that the python's thick scales begin to crack, releasing sparks. Even wounded, the snake reacts quickly and makes a deadly strike that the hero only manages to dodge using the void step at the last millisecond. Gasping for breath, the little protagonist analyzes the situation and concludes that the size difference is too great to kill with a single blow. Changing his strategy, he decides to weaken the monster little by cutting its scales and looking for its blind spot to finish it off. Sheathing the spear on his back, he activates the perfect level thunder punch technique, charging his fist with lightning to break through the tough defense. Finding the perfect opening, the kid jumps back to create distance and prepare the final attack. Staring intently at the python's cracked neck, he lunges forward at breakneck speed. But before he can really attack, fatigue sets in and he stops, panting to catch his breath in a corner. Observing the snake, which is also collapsing from exhaustion and covered in wounds, he thinks he only needs a few more rounds to take down the monster. Calling the beast to battle again, the hero raises his spear and commands the snake to come at him with everything it has to end this once and for all. Suddenly the boy's sharp instincts kick in and he realizes they're not alone there. Turning his head sharply, the boy asks loudly who is hiding in the shadows of the trees. Out of nowhere, a sadistic laugh echoes and a giant masked madman leaps off the cliff toward him with his fists ablaze. Armed with flaming brass knuckles, the brute attacks the hero without warning, intending to crush his head by surprise. Pulling the spear aside, the boy blocks the blow, but the force of the strike throws him far away, raising a cloud of dust. Coughing on the ground, the little protagonist recovers from the impact and realizes that the masked man is not alone. Standing up, he angrily asks who those guys are who attacked so cowardly. From the shadows emerges the gang of men in suits, and in the midst of them the blonde rich kid steps forward, saying that they will meet again and thanking the boy for tiring out the snake for them. Surrounded by the playboy's elite group of hunters, the boy realizes that the situation has become terrible for him. With a wicked grin, the young master confesses that when he saw the boy leaving town, he thought he was going to become monster food right then and there. And to make matters worse, the rich kid mocks him, saying that the boy was very lucky and that he only avenged the fake python and will take credit for its death anyway. Analyzing the gang, our hero concludes that fighting 5 martial artists at once is suicide and decides to devise an escape plan. Losing his patience, the masked man advances again, shouting that the young master wants the snake and tells the boy to get out of here immediately. With a murderous aura growing around him, the boy snaps his fingers and warns that the guy only hit him before because it was a surprise attack. Going head-to-head with the masked man, the hero defends himself with one hand and breaks the coward's posture with a single blow. Widening his eyes behind the mask, the brute can't understand how the skinny kid has so much brute strength. Without mercy, the little guy delivers an explosive punch to the big guy's face, sending the unfortunate fellow flying like a rocket against the rocks. Spitting blood, the masked man falls hard to the ground, knocked out in a single blow to the surprise of the entire gang. Watching the boy's punch, the young master frowns and realizes that this movement is the same technique that broke the mask of his henchman in the arena. Putting the pieces together, the rich kid discovers that the humble little boy in front of him is the same masked wrestler who humiliated him in the ring. Spitting out the words, the rich kid accuses the brat of being the first person in the world to embarrass him in front of so many people. Sending his henchmen on the offensive, the playboy orders them to kill the hero without a second thought. Seeing the 4 heavily armed opponents advancing, our boy throws his spear to the ground and sets off down the road. Focused on the escape, the playboy orders the team to enter the dense forest to hunt down the kid at all costs and warns them to watch out for traps. The group leader scoffs with a laugh, stating that 5 experienced hunters have nothing to fear about a little boy alone in the woods. From the middle of the foliage, a blue blur cuts through the air and decapitates the arrogant leader before he finishes his sentence. Leaping from the trees with his fist charged with lightning, our hero massacres the rest of the group with a sequence of 9 consecutive thunderclaps, creating a crater in the ground. As the dust settles, we see the Playboy's henchmen all dead or dying on the ground, and the forest stained red. Sweating profusely, the young master recoils in fear, unable to believe that his elite gang was decimated so quickly by an apprentice. Trembling, the last surviving henchman whispers that the kid used the 9 sounds of thunder technique mastered to the perfect limit, and that not even veteran masters reach such an absurd level of power. Desperate and yelling to shut the henchman up, the rich kid refuses to accept that the boy he was mocking is actually an invincible monster disguised as a commoner. Sitting on the ground, our hero sighs heavily, thinking that if he hadn't spent so much energy fighting the giant snake, he would have crushed those cowardly hunters in one fell swoop. With blood in his eyes, he grips the spear tightly, and decides that the only way to win now is by hunting them down one by one in the shadows of the forest. On the other side, the rich playboy is panicking, running like crazy and yelling at the 2 remaining henchmen to form a shield wall around him. But in the blink of an eye, a blue blur cuts through the darkness, and a sharp punch extinguishes the light in the first bodyguard's eyes before he even understands what hit him. Finishing the job, the little hero uses the spear as leverage and throws the second brute against a tree trunk, breaking the guy's spine instantly. Trembling from head to toe, the young master sees his last human shield fall dead in the undergrowth, and despair hits him hard. Trying to maintain his composure, the rich kid yells, threatening the boy and telling him to run away quickly while there's still time. Tired of the lies, our hero charges forward, tearing through the wind, saying that he has nowhere to run and that he will die right there that day. Startled by the kid's murderous aura, the playboy realizes he provoked the wrong guy, and death is galloping towards him. In a desperate move, the rich kid tries to block the attack by crossing his arms, but the force of the impact creates a shockwave that sweeps through the surrounding foliage. Cursing his own luck, the rich kid can't understand how the skinny brat got so ridiculously strong in just a few days after getting beaten up in the arena. As he retreated, the young master narrowly dodged the spear, which grazed his shoulder and cut his expensive clothing. Running for his life, the playboy murmurs that the boy has turned into an uncontrollable monster, and that he needs to find a way to survive this human hunt. Upon catching his prey, our boy warns in a somber tone that the game is over, and it's the rich kid's turn to pay the bill. Cornered and with no way out, the rich kid raises his hand, yelling not to think he's defeated, and invokes a secret technique to try and turn the tables. Covering his finger with a blinding white light, the playboy shouts the name of the technique and fires a beam of concentrated energy that pierces the wood like paper. Realizing the fatal danger, the boy dodges, tearing his cheek in a thin cut but feeling the pressure of the attack only graze him. The destructive energy strikes the giant tree behind the boy, and the thick trunk explodes into 1,000 pieces with a thunderous roar. Shooting like a maniac, the rich kid fires the void-destroying finger repeatedly, sending lasers everywhere in an attempt to shoot the hero. Shocked by the damage, the protagonist deduces that a technique with that insane firepower is not common, and must be at least level B. With a sadistic smile, the rich kid mocks him, saying that he memorized the boy's poor face and that if he doesn't die there, his whole family will pay the price. Hearing the threat, our hero's expression changes, and a dark shadow covers his face as pure rage explodes in his chest. Dodging the light shots with monstrous agility, the kid uses the void step technique and vanishes from the enemy's sight in a blur. Thinking he's in control, the rich kid boasts that his uncle is a boss at the military base, and his father is a big shot running the whole city. Ignoring the coward's record, the boy suddenly appears right behind the playboy with his spear already drawn. Whispering in the rich kid's ear, the hero warns him that he should have kept his mouth shut instead of threatening the family of a madman. In a swift and brutal movement, the little protagonist lands a devastating punch right on the rich man's jaw before he even finishes blinking. The blow sends the playboy spinning into the air as blood splatters across the scene with the overwhelming force of the punch. Fallen to his knees on the floor, the rich kid tries to gasp for air, coughing, red-faced, and tasting the bitterness of his own arrogance. With eyes blazing with fury and bathed in electricity, our boy pronounces the death sentence, warning that threatening his family was the last mistake that bastard ever made in life. Spitting out teeth and blood, the playboy begs for his life, whimpering and asking why the kid is so strong if he's not even a trained martial artist yet. Before the hero could finish the job, a giant shadow swallowed them both, revealing the black jade python, which had recovered from its blackout and was ready for round 2, drooling with rage. Screaming furiously, the snake whips the ground and throws the playboy far away with a single blow, solving the kid's problem for him. With the field clear, the monster focuses its hatred on our hero, who sighs heavily, realizing that the previous fight lasted too long and gave the giant beast time to recover its energy. Hidden in the bushes, one of the henchmen who had fainted wakes up and sees the scene from afar, cursing his luck and looking for where the rich boss ended up in the middle of all that chaos. Coming face to face with the fleeing henchman, the snake strikes, tearing through the air, and the hero tells the unfortunate fellow to run if he wants to live to tell the tale. Desperate, the lackey runs like crazy, while the python opens its gaping mouth to swallow the guy whole in a quick snack. But the boy takes advantage of the snake's distraction and plunges the spear into the creature's back, diverting its attention from the fugitive at the same time. At that moment, the system beeps again, and a notification informs that the hero has gained 30 indirect martial points, because the snake killed an opponent in the midst of the confusion. Excited by the extra points, the boy quickly calculates and realizes that he has finally gathered enough to break the limit and become a true martial artist once and for all. Jumping back, he decides he can't fight and evolve at the same time, and needs to find a safe corner to make the advance without being eaten in the process. Scanning the surroundings, the hero's eyes gleam when he spots the dark cave from which the snake emerged, deciding that this hole will be his evolution chamber. Dashing toward the cave, he uses the void steps technique, leaving the giant python in the dust as the beast furiously crawls behind him, smashing trees along the way. At the entrance to the cave, the snake thrashes against the rock, trying to reach the human, but the cramped space traps the monster's colossal head outside. Deep down, the boy collapses to his knees, breathless but smiling as he opens the system screen, ready to press the evolution button and become a true legend. Trapped at the cave entrance, the giant snake roars furiously, drooling venom because it cannot reach its snack deep inside. Ignoring the noise, our boy opens the system panel and throws all the accumulated points directly into vitality, pressing the button as if there were no tomorrow. Yelling to go faster, he sees the numbers climbing like crazy from 90 to 91, hitting the deadly limit ceiling. Feeling his body burning, the boy realizes that his blood is boiling like lava, and the pain of evolution hits hard, forcing his veins to almost burst from so much raw energy swirling freely. Outside, the python lays its head on the rock, sensing the monstrous aura emanating from the hole, and its instincts signal danger. With a blinding flash, the notification pops up on the screen, announcing that the limit has been broken, and he has now officially reached rank 1 in martial arts, his body covered in a scarlet aura of fire. Cracking his knuckles, the hero says it's his turn to play and lunges forward while the snake recoils slightly, sensing the scent of the new predator in the area. Staring into the creature's red eyes, he knows that the increased power has changed everything, and the real hunt begins now. In a swoop, the snake tries to use its tail again to whip the boy away, thinking he's still the same weakling as before. But this time, the hero counters the attack by unleashing a blast of power that kicks up dust and makes the ground tremble, pushing the giant python's body back without much effort. Startled by the brute force, the reptilian monster hisses, trying to understand how the food turned into the hunter in the blink of an eye. Without giving it time to think, the boy invokes the thunder punch technique and charges like a rocket towards the beast's skull. In the blink of an eye, he uses the snake's own back as a ladder and runs up to reach the creature's blind spot high above. Focusing all his newly awakened energy, he prepares a devastating punch that tears through the air with red and blue sparks ready to annihilate the python's scale defense once and for all. With a sly smile, the protagonist digs his feet into the beast's hide, muttering a mocking gotcha, before dropping the bomb. With his fist clenched with the strength of a titan, the boy warns the snake that the time has come for it to sleep forever. Screaming at the top of his lungs, he lowers his arm and plunges the thunder punch straight into the top of the monster's skull, shattering its carapace in an explosion of blue energy that blinds everything around it. Taking the blow to the head with the mallet, the python roars one last time, writhing in violent agony as its gigantic body collapses, sinking into the forest floor. Not satisfied, the kid follows up the combo by activating the 9 thunder sounds at the perfect level, unleashing a rain of deafening punches that make the sky tremble non-stop. The continuous roar echoes through the woods, crushing the snake's head until the monster stops breathing and becomes a statistic on the bloodied ground. Tired but whole, the hero lands atop the smoky carcass, ensuring the job is done and that he is no longer a nobody in the food chain. Observing the outstretched body, he comments that even though the creature was already injured, facing his deadly attacks proved that he can now fight at the top, and the screen already shows 92 brand new martial points in his account. Sitting on the snake's dead eye, the kid remembers the rule of tearing off the monster's left ear to prove its death and bursts into laughter when he realizes that snakes don't have ears and wonders how the hell he's going to prove the kill and collect the money. Sighing, he decides to leave that mess for later and quickly return to base before more crazy people show up wanting to cause trouble in the middle of nowhere. Walking nonchalantly, he pulls the spear, dragging it along the ground, and walks away from the gigantic crater he left in the landscape. Arriving at the scene of the earlier altercation, he finds the rich kid's body lying dead in the dust, and murmurs that the rich kid met an easy end considering all the crap he said and did. Casually rummaging through the playboy's pockets, the hero wonders if that destructive finger the rich man used was written in some manual he left behind. Bingo, the boy pulls a torn black booklet from the dead man's jacket, grinning from ear to ear as he finds the complete instructions for the advanced Fingers of the Void technique right there in his hand. The camera pans upwards, revealing the vastness of the forest and the snake's body lying in the middle of the valley as night begins to fall, bringing the cold outside the walls. Focusing back on the cave, we see a strange golden glow illuminating the rocks in the background, suggesting that the creature's lair wasn't empty and that our hero may have unknowingly left a treasure behind. Sitting on the cave floor, our hero devours the pages of the secret manual for the Fingers of the Void technique, hastily memorizing each word. After fixing everything in his mind, he closes his eyes and calls on the system to accelerate the learning of the new technique using the old trickery. Out of nowhere, the hero's brilliant clone appears in virtual space and fires the Void Finger attack repeatedly, without missing a millimeter. Drawing energy from his finger, the boy tries to imitate the clone, and the mastery notification begins to frantically rise on the screen with each shot he hits. With a confident smile, he masters the basic level of the scam in minutes, and realizes that the system is far too rigged. Emerging from meditation, the hero coughs up blood, terrified by the force of the rank B technique, which put absurd pressure on his lungs just from attempting the basic movement. Jumping ahead 3 days later in the middle of the forest, a giant demon bear roars fiercely, charging towards the boy. Preparing the attack, our boy concentrates everything on his index finger and unleashes the technique, tearing through the air and piercing the bear's armored chest from side to side in an explosion of blood. Satisfied with the damage, he sees the system notify him that the Finger of Emptiness has reached the perfect level, confirming that the rank B technique is a meat-grinding machine. Arriving at the martial base, the hero breathes a sigh of relief at returning to civilization, carrying the carcasses of the monsters in his backpack and eager to collect his reward. At the exchange counter, the hunters around him widen their eyes when the attendant shouts out the amount of 230,000 coins, impressed by the boy's insane killing spree. Leaving the store loaded with cash, the boy overhears the group gossiping about the absurd number of level 1 monsters and the rare high-level carcasses he brought back. Adding up the reward, the hero realizes that he hunted 72 initial monsters and 83 medium ones, making a small fortune of 406,000 with ease. Thoughtfully, he murmurs that he exaggerated a bit in the massacre and that he drew too much attention from the other hunters. Outside the base, the camera shows the bustling headquarters with a strangely tense atmosphere hanging in the air. As they left the base, a commotion took over the street, and the hunters gossiped indignantly that security had blocked the gates, preventing everyone from leaving. Tearing through the crowd, the rich, spoiled uncle of the dead boy appears, fuming with rage, his rings gleaming, and orders the guards to close everything down so that no one can escape alive. The suited boss stops in front of the nervous uncle and politely asks what the reason for all this fuss is. Yelling with bloodshot eyes, the wealthy uncle announces that his nephew Yi Feng and 4 other elite bodyguards have been murdered in the forest, and he wants blood. The crowd around swallows hard, shocked by the news that someone had the audacity to take down 5 martial artists from a powerful gang all at once. Whispering to himself, a hunter grumbles that if it weren't for the rich man's last name, someone would have killed that spoiled playboy a long time ago. Walking through the square, the rich uncle informs the guards that the murderer stole a secret rank B technique from the deceased and orders everyone to be searched until the culprit is found. Hidden among the crowd, our boy listens to everything and deduces that the investigation has revealed the marks of the giant snake, but he can't be careless or he'll get caught. Quickening his pace, the hero tries to disappear from the sight of the security guards, who are inspecting everyone's hunting backpacks. But bad luck strikes when one of the thugs in a suit notices the kid turning his back on the roadblock and alerts his partner on the radio. In a swift movement, the 2 security guards block the protagonist's path, ordering him to make way and not try anything funny. Pulling the boy aside, one of the guards gives a forced smile, saying he heard the rumor about the rookie hunter who made 400,000 and ironically praises his skill. With the atmosphere heavy, the guard changes his tone, suggesting that to kill so many animals at such a young age, the kid must have some trick up his sleeve, or perhaps even a stolen technique. At that point, a meddlesome secretary arrives with a clipboard, announcing that the kid is just a beginner hunter, and that given the absurd amount of prey, he must have picked up Master Yi's backpack from the floor, and orders him to be searched immediately. Drawing their weapons, the guards advance with flaming spears, ordering the boy to be quiet and cooperate if he doesn't want to become barbecue right there in the middle of the square. In the blink of an eye, the hero dodges the attack and appears behind the guards with his spear aimed at one of their throats, leaving the guy sweating profusely with the absurd speed. Looking bored, the boy asks if the crazy kids really want to pick a fight with a student from the main school, in the middle of the crowded street. Seeing the commotion, the rich uncle intervenes, ordering the guards to retreat and grumbling that picking a fight with a promising student from the city school isn't worth it for his image. Whispering in the chief's ear, a guard warns that if the kid killed so many animals, he must be a rising genius, and to offend him now would be foolish. Changing his tune, the uncle swallows his pride and apologizes to the boy, saying that he only wants to find out who stole the family technique and hopes he is not accusing an innocent person. To ease the situation, the rich man pulls out a wad of bills and offers the boy 30,000 coins to forget the misunderstanding. With a mocking smile, the hero takes the money, thinking how ironic it is to receive compensation money from the uncle of the guy he himself killed, and left for the snake. With the magazine released, the group focuses on the boy's backpack and finds nothing suspicious, proving that the kid is clean on the outside. By putting the manual in the campfire earlier, we see a quick flashback of the hero burning the little book after memorizing everything so as not to leave any loose ends. Freed from the confusion, the protagonist quietly leaves, promising to take a shower and go straight to the official martial arts registration center so as not to tempt fate anymore. Now in a lavish hotel room, the hero throws his clothes on the floor and opens the holographic panel, grinning from ear to ear with the 534 points accumulated in the mad hunt. Calculating the attributes, he sees that his vitality is at 103, and is amazed at how much energy he has gathered without focusing on the basic training on the screen. Thinking about his progression, he realizes that if he spends 300 points, he will jump to the intermediate martial artist stage and become even more of a monster. However, he remembers that the mortal body is 6% deficient, and decides to test where this leads by spending some points on other things to balance it out. By adding points to his spirit, he realizes that nothing has changed and gives up on this flawed idea to focus on what gets results right now. By inserting the stitches into the mortal body, the hero feels the muscles tear and rebuild themselves, denser with each click on the bright screen. Frying 300 points at once, the screen updates with vitality going to 123 and the body hitting almost 40% of pure strength. Wanting to test the limit, the boy puts another 200 points into his vitality and body bar just to be sure. Overwhelmed by the pain of change, the hero collapses to his knees screaming as energy overflows in a red aura that sets the entire room ablaze. Writhing in pain, we see the boy's physique stretching and cracking like marble, showing that the evolution of that crazy system exacts a heavy price in hand-to-hand combat. Hours later, the aura calms down and he sighs in relief, grateful to be back to normal, because if he turned into a giant brute, it would be a real pain to explain to his relatives. Clean and smelling good, the protagonist arrives in front of the pompous building of the Martial Artists Association with his morale sky high and his hands in his pockets. Notifying the girl at the counter that he had come to take the official test, she dispatches an employee to guide the boy down the fancy hallway. Upon arriving at the testing room, an examiner congratulates the kid on his youth and informs him that to pass on the first try, his vitality needs to hit 100 points and his combat power needs to reach 1 million on the screen. Puzzled, one of the evaluators comments to his partner that it's strange for a boy of that age to come and take the test alone without a teacher to ensure proper technique. In the back of the room, the group murmurs as a student fails the combat test, scoring 992 on the scoreboard, cursing for almost passing. The robotic voice calls the next candidate, and a white-haired boy enters the booth to try his luck in front of everyone. Screaming like Goku, the white-haired boy throws a powerful punch at the machine, sending sparks flying everywhere to show off his talent. And the big screen screams success with 1,763 points, guaranteeing the boy's passport to the world of real artists. Backstage, the audience goes wild, recognizing the style and deducing that the student is a disciple of the dojo focused on the thunder punch, confirming his master's fame for impressive strength. Hearing the chatter, the hero finds the commotion strange and wonders, if that's a student from the same meddling dojo as before, how many prodigies does that place have up its sleeve? Cutting through the breeze, the inspector announces that it's our boy's turn, and he walks relaxed towards the testing machine with his hands on his jacket. Passing by his white-haired rival, the cocky kid lets out a laugh, asking if the hero is there because he's a genius too and doubts that the kid will pass the test. Placing a finger on the scanning screen, the machine beeps and the screen displays 123 vitality points, almost breaking the device from so much accumulated energy. Startled, the evaluators nearly fell out of their chairs, shouting that the number was absurd and questioning whether the machine had malfunctioned again under the force of a child. Drooling with envy, the white-haired man tries to disguise it by saying that high vitality doesn't win fights, and what really matters is the blow to the power machine. Ignoring the crowd's opposition, the referee orders the fight to proceed to the second round, and tells the kid to smash the fighting machine to see what he's capable of. The hero positions himself thinking that with his current body hitting at 100%, he will rip the robot's arm off, and decides to use only 40% so as not to attract attention. Changing his mind at the last second, he thinks that hitting too weakly might foolishly fail him and decides to increase his force to 50% with a blind punch. Firing the fist without hesitation, the shockwave smashes the metal face of the sensor and kicks up dust all over the room. The guys in the back of the class panic when the steel machine that should withstand cannon fire flies away with the jolt of a clean, untechnical punch. Babando, the evaluator, murmurs that the average rank 1 martial artist has a power level of 3,000. The screen lights up red, shining an incredible 3,004 points, and the room falls into a deathly silence, like someone who has seen a ghost and can't believe what they've seen. At the top of the gallery, 2 men in suits look on in shock, recognizing the kid who beat up the masked man in the arena weeks ago. Cutting to the VIP office, a woman in high heels observes the rookie's reports, while security confirms they've found the legend disguised as a student that management ordered them to find at all costs. The blonde president of the association sighs in frustration, reading her cell phone, which says that the city hasn't produced a decent genius in a long time and that her position is threatened by her neighbors who are doing well in the tournaments. Suddenly, the office door is flung open and the assistant bursts in, breathless, screaming that a monster just broke the record in the test downstairs. Explaining the incident, the girl recounts that a beginner-level boy hit 3,000 combat power points with a single punch using only physical strength. Moving to the main lobby, our hero follows the inspector in the suit, thinking that registering as a martial artist would be quicker. The inspector says he's going to take the boy to the second floor to register his identity and collect his generous government allowance. Before they could go up, a gruff woman's voice echoed from the top of the stairs, telling the inspector to get lost because she herself would be dealing with the rookie prodigy. Looking up, the hero sees the president descending the steps, exuding grandeur in her flowing black coat and leather boots. Stopping in front of the boy, she introduces herself as Wu Lingxian, the boss of the place, and tells the boy to follow her to the VIP office. Accompanying the blonde, the protagonist thinks to himself that he imagined a grumpy old aunt leading the association, not a young woman with the aura of a rank 5 master. Entering the sun-drenched office, the two sit on the chic sofa and the atmosphere becomes more relaxed. Crossing her legs, the president comments that the principal of her school kept complaining that this year's class was weak, but he didn't mention that he was hiding a monster under the rug. Sweating profusely, the hero tries to deflect the question by innocently asking why he's in the president's office, since he only wanted to collect his allowance and a guide to get home. Taking a sip of her tea, the blonde reassures the boy, explaining that the registration paperwork is already sorted out downstairs, and the money will be deposited into his account every month without fail. Getting up from the sofa, she announces that she's going to teach the guiding technique in person and point-blank, asks how much the kid knows about the subject. Scratching his chin, the little protagonist repeats what he read in the books, saying that the techniques serve to absorb the chi of heaven and earth, strengthening the body according to each person's element of nature. Smiling at the correct answer, the president explains that the books aren't so wrong, but they omit the fact that guiding techniques are useful for much more than just strengthening the body. To demonstrate, she lights her fist with a live flame, and explains that her celestial flame technique focuses on drawing chi from the fire to increase the damage of her blows. Throwing a fireball out the window, the blonde shows that by mastering the technique, She can attack from afar like a wizard instead of just punching the enemy in the face. Watching the explosion from afar, the boy's jaw drops, realizing that school doesn't teach half the cool moves that real martial artists know how to do. Summoning various colorful elementals around her hand, the boss lists the 7 main attributes that exist and explains that thunder and metal are the ones that deal the most pure damage, with fire coming in 3rd place in the damage ranking. The protagonist questions how he chooses which element to train if the compatibility of each person's body with the element is what dictates everything. To determine compatibility, the president throws a crystal ball into the boy's hand and announces that an 80% affinity is already considered genius level in society. As soon as the hero catches the ball, the thing glows red like an exploding sun, and the meter instantly hits 100% fire affinity, leaving the blonde shocked. Widening her eyes, the president stammers, asking if the boy understands that 100% means that he absorbs energy from the environment without wasting a single drop, and that he is a monstrous prodigy. Confused, the blonde murmurs that she herself only has 80%, and yet she reached Master Rank 5, dominating the entire city. Grabbing the boy's shoulder, she celebrates, shouting that with that talent his future will be much bigger than hers, and that the backwoods town has finally given birth to a monster who can stand up to the guys from the capital. Shrugging, the boy drops the crystal ball, complaining that fire is kind of cool, but he prefers the element of thunder to combo with the electric punches he already practices. At that same moment, the crystal ball blinks and changes color, exploding in a storm of yellow lightning that illuminates the entire office. Seeing the lightning bolts leaping from the boy's hand, the president falls back onto the sofa, her eyes wide with disbelief. Scratching his head awkwardly, the hero comments quietly that it seems his affinity with thunder is also at 100%, and asks if that's normal. Stunned with shock, the president yells, asking if the kid is real because having dual compatibility is, at most, madness and something only an inhuman monster would do. Testing his luck, the hero thinks of the element of wind, and the crystal ball instantly glows a bright green, confirming that he too is a master of it, leaving the blonde almost having a fit on the sofa. A few minutes later, the office is deathly silent as the president stares at the crystal ball, which shines in all 7 colors of the elements simultaneously, proving that the boy is an absurdly talented jack-of-all-trades. Putting her hand to her head, the blonde murmurs that she must be dreaming because she's never heard of someone with total affinity for everything. Downcast, she reflects that she always considered herself a rare genius for reaching rank 5 at the age of 30, and that she was the bee's knees in town. But she remembers one time on the battlefield when she came face to face with a monster beyond imagination, and realized she was just an ordinary person compared to the great warriors of the world. Reliving the scene in her head, she recounts that to defeat a creature beyond common sense, one needs a warrior who also breaks all the rules of logic and nature. Pointing to the hero, she declares that only existences that people cannot understand have the power to change the course of impossible wars. Animated again, she sighs with relief, and tells the boy that it's a relief their city has at least one of these aberrations for their own good. However, the president dampens the enthusiasm by warning that having an affinity for everything is a bad idea because training all 7 elements at once divides the energy, and in the end, the person doesn't become strong in any of them. Undeterred, the protagonist brazenly asks for the manuals on the 7 guiding techniques, already planning to use the cheat system to automatically level everything up later. Hitting her forehead, the blonde argues, saying that in the past a genius tried to pull off this stunt of training everything together and died old and stuck at rank 1 because he divided his strength and wasted time. Insisting, the boy makes the excuse that he doesn't want to decide now and promises that he will only practice one main technique, but wants to read about the others to see which one suits him best. Reluctantly agreeing, the president hands over the manuals and changes the subject, reminding the hero that the monthly school tournament is coming up and asks if he's ready for the challenge. Explaining the urgency, she says that the war against the monster race is heating up on the borders and that the government has created a genius training camp to focus resources on the strongest, and she wants to nominate the boy for this VIP spot. Hearing the proposal, the boy discovers that the only condition to win a spot at the national camp is to crush everyone and take first place in the school tournament. Agreeing without a second thought, he clenches his fists, remembering the war from 10 years ago that took his parents' lives and vows to fight to end this carnage. Deep in his mind, images of destruction and despair from the past return, and he vows that he will not let the same tragedy destroy what little family he has left to care for. It's already night and back home. The hero pulls out the official document from the association and throws it on the table, showing his uncles that he has finally graduated as a ranked martial artist. Reading the paper, the aunt begins to cry with joy, hugging the boy, and the uncle pats him on the back, laughing heartily with pride for his nephew who has become a true hero. Doing the math, the uncle celebrates that with the 10,000 monthly allowance from rank 1, he and his wife will no longer need to kill themselves working dangerous odd jobs to pay the monthly bills. With a sincere smile, the little protege comforts his family, assuring them that from now on he will be the one to support and defend the house from any problems that may arise. Later in his room with the doors locked, the boy sits on the bed with his legs crossed in the dark and activates his aura to begin the intense training. Focusing his energy in the palm of his hand, he summons the bright red flames and practices the first guiding technique he learned at the association. A few minutes later, the flames begin to smoke, extinguishing themselves and showing that the hero's control of elemental energy is still very weak and rudimentary. Frustrated with the lighter's little flame, the boy wonders why the technique doesn't have the same absurd explosion of power as the combat skills he upgraded in the system, and he doesn't understand why it's so slow to learn the normal way. Opening the holographic panel, he notices that a new tab called Guide Technique has appeared in the corner of the screen, confirming that the system has recognized the teaching, but the skill level is 0. Reading the fine print, he is surprised to discover that guiding techniques also have levels of evolution from 1 to 100%, and wonders why the president didn't warn him of this detail before releasing him. Jumping to a conclusion, the kid suspects that the level system for the energy technique must be an exclusive privilege of his cheating system, and that normal people don't see it that way. Fumbling with the buttons, he tries to figure out how to use his hard-earned martial arts points to level up the fire guide technique bar all at once. Pressing the button furiously, the panel flashes red, indicating an error message indicating insufficient funds to upgrade the entire technique, leaving the hero huffing in frustration. Determined not to waste the night, he sits focused and calls his 7 clones to meditate and learn the other 6 guiding techniques all at once, in the brutal rush of the automatic system. Hours later, his mental space is a light show with the 7 clones floating around, each mastering a different elemental technique, from water to wind, all at level 1 to start the fun. With his head throbbing, the little protagonist realizes the madness of his actions and understands why the genius from the past died trying to focus on the 7 elements, because the energy spent balancing so many different forces is inhuman. Trying to use what he learned, he gathers the flame of the fire in one hand, showing that on its own the element works smoothly and strongly. But when he tries to invoke the energy of thunder in his other hand to perform the combo, things go wrong and the 2 energies begin to fight violently inside his body. The clash between fire and thunder creates a dangerous chain reaction that nearly bursts the blood vessels in the hand, forcing the hero to dissipate the power before he loses his fingers in the explosion. Analyzing the problem, he deduces that fire and thunder are too aggressive in elements, and that the raw nature of the 2 does not allow them to mix peacefully without a glue in between to balance the force. Not giving up, the boy decides to force the fusion by force and fries his hand in one attempt after another, enduring the pain of each failed explosion in his sweaty palm. Dawn breaks outside the building, and the hero's room flickers incessantly, with small, muffled rumblings leaking through the window. When the sun finally shows its face, we see the boy's face again in real life at the start of a new day. Breathing heavily and dripping with sweat from exhaustion, the protagonist looks at the ceiling, smiling, and murmurs that the crazy effort finally paid off. With eyes gleaming with stubbornness, he shouts softly and forces the 2 energies together once more, commanding the elements to obey through brute force. Suddenly, magic happens, and the red fire intertwines perfectly with the blue lightning bolts of thunder, forming a chaotic and beautiful sphere of energy in his hand. Thrilled with his achievement, the hero wastes no time and runs out of the house to the backyard, eager to test the devastating power of the bizarre fusion he himself created the night before. Arriving at the city's testing ground, the boy looks at the fancy device and focuses on the power display showing 0, waiting for the impact. Positioning his feet, he prepares to punch, thinking that last time he crushed the machine with 50%, so now he'll only test 30% of the new combo to avoid breaking the public parade. With his fist burning in the mixture of fire and thunder, he brings the wood down on the machine, creating a shockwave that lifts the leaves from the ground. The display flashes and locks onto 2,343 points, proving that the fusion doubled his base strength in the blink of an eye. Laughing to himself, he reflects that the isolated thunder alone was already a good mix, but with the fire added, the whole thing turned into a cannon. Excited by the numbers, the boy decides that 30% wasn't enough and wants to see how far this game will go if he picks up the pace. Without hesitation, he throws another punch, covering his entire arm with chaotic energy and slams it into the machine's panel with gusto. The screen screams 3,041 points and the hero recoils, shocked by the damage. Doing the math in his head, he realizes that hitting 3,000 power points is the level of an advanced rank 1 martial artist. But his vitality is still stuck at the beginning of the rank, which is total insanity. Looking at his own hand, he imagines the nightmare it would be if he managed to fuse all 7 elements at once, creating an atomic bomb in his fist. Satisfied with the morning test, he decides to go home and try his luck by fusing 3 elements to see if he doesn't blow up the block. Back in the little room on the roof, the kid sits in the lotus position and the camera pulls back, showing him isolated up there, ready for another night of crazy training. Fast forward to the next day and we see the shirtless hero, sweaty and with deep dark circles under his eyes, complaining that trying to bring 3 elements together was a total disaster and he didn't advance an inch. Opening the panel, he theorizes that if he manages to get enough martial points to level up his guiding techniques through the system, fusion should become easier. Focusing on the calendar, he remembers that the school tournament is tomorrow and decides that the main objective is to crush everyone to farm as many points as possible. On the day of the tournament, the principal grabs the microphone and warns the crowd of students that this time the game has become serious because of the ugly war on the borders. Pointing to the screen, the man in the suit reveals that the 3 best fighters of the day will win a direct spot in the genius camp, and the rewards will be absurd. The crowd goes wild, and the protagonist's friend comments that even the arrogant dojo master wants to send his students to the camp to gain favor. Listening to the chatter, our hero sighs wearily, thinking that if he takes first place and leaves the other 2 aside, no one will complain. Whispering in his ear, his friend warns him not to even try because the 2 prodigies from the school have advanced to rank 1, and nobody else has a chance against them. The boy notices the 2 strong guys from school acting all high and mighty at the back of the court, with everyone fawning over them. Out of nowhere, one of the big guys confronts the other and challenges him, saying he's going to prove once and for all who the real number 1 is there. While the students gossip, the old teacher walks with the principal complaining that he searched the entire school for the 9th Thunder Genius and couldn't find even a shadow of the kid. Cutting off the conversation, the director stops and points in surprise towards the courtyard entrance, seeing a group of men in suits arriving out of nowhere. Leading the group, the owner of the Thunder Dojo enters, accompanied by 2 bodyguards and the purple-haired rich kid our hero met earlier. Finding the visit strange, the principal asks what his rival is doing there on the day of the school tournament, and the man responds by mocking the quality of that year's students. To make matters worse, the dojo owner proposes a bet, saying that the school's best student must fight against the 2 disciples he brought to see who really rules the city. Irritated, the old man realizes the trap, but the dojo boss scrutinizes him, saying that refusing would be admitting that the entire school is garbage with no talent to show for it. Far from there, the chaos begins with a student calling the teacher to report that our boy is crushing everyone in the arena and is already in the finals. Turning his face away, the old man asks which student named Sue is causing all this havoc without anyone noticing him before. Running breathlessly, the student shouts that he is that weird kid who always sat at the back of the classroom and never drew attention to anything. The old master's eyes widen as he remembers seeing the boy around, but never believed the skinny kid had this level of hidden brute strength. Going back to the dojo owner, he laughs in the director's face, agreeing to the bet and saying that if his disciples lose to the school's students, he'll throw in the towel for good. Taking the bait, the teachers accept the fight, calling the guy arrogant and promising that the 2 big guys from the school will put the visitors in their place. With anger in his eyes, the director orders the main arena to be prepared for the final, warning that no one comes to his house to crow with impunity. There in the combat arena, the holographic screen draws the next fight, pitting our hero against the last generic student left before the finals. The opponent tries to play the nice guy and tells the boy to give up quickly because he's practically a martial artist and doesn't want to send anyone to the hospital unnecessarily. Laughing inwardly, the protagonist ignores the warning and dryly asks if the guy is going to jump out of the ring by himself, or if he'd rather take a beating first. Nervous about the provocation, the rival advances with his fist raised, threatening to break the face of the cocky newcomer. In a single swift leap, the hero crosses the arena, tearing through the air and landing a flying kick straight to the poor guy's chest before he can finish his sentence. The impact violently throws the opponent out of the ring, slamming his back against the protective wall and instantly dropping unconscious. The audience erupts in absolute shock, screaming that the skeletal kid just knocked out last year's runner-up with a single punch. Landing softly, our boy adjusts his jacket as the announcer declares him the winner, and he advances straight to the grand final of the tournament. Watching from the stands, the burly student analyzes the scene and realizes that the force of the blow was insane, suspecting that the skinny guy is already a level 1 martial artist as well. The old master scratches his beard in disbelief, wondering where on earth the boy got so much power and blaming himself for not having seen his talent sooner in regular classes. Muttering to the principal, the old man says that if he had paid attention to the boy, the school would have 3 geniuses on the podium, not just 2. Cutting to the screen, the announcer announces the semifinal between the 2 big guys from school to decide who will face the hero in the last game of the day. In the ring, the 2 strongmen begin a fierce, insane exchange of punches, their hands smeared with blood from the speed at which the blows collide head-on. Taking a step back, Chen Shan warns that he will use the ultimate technique and activates the 3 sounds of thunder in his glowing fist. On the other side, Li Tu retaliates in kind, and their fists clash, creating a sonic boom that makes the crowd cover their ears in the stands. But Chen Shan gives a sideways smile and ignites his entire hand with red energy, revealing that he knows how to use fire externalization to double the strength of the attack. The crowd goes wild seeing that the big guy has mastered the fire attribute, and comments that few people can manifest elemental energy like that at such a young age. But Li Tu doesn't fall behind and draws on metallic energy, covering his arm with a heavy gray aura, leaving the audience in double shock. Mocking the fire, the metal boy warns that his element is focused on pure defense and attack, and that the flames won't pierce his steel guard, not a chance. With an impenetrable defense, Li Tu advances, breaking through the fire technique and throwing his rival out of the arena, securing his place in the grand final with a resounding victory. Lying on the ground, the loser grumbles that the other resorted to using the 5 waves of thunder and hid his hand until the last second to win by surprise. Seeing the scene, the old master smiles slightly, satisfied that the student has reached level 5 of thunder and has even mastered metal in less than 2 weeks of secret training. Analyzing the winner, the director comments that the boy's talent is quite rare, but unfortunately it's not the monstrous level of 9 sounds they witnessed on that mysterious day in the forest. Sighing, the old man declares that the final is already won by Li Tu, because it's impossible for our hero to go head-to-head with the metal element and the 5 waves of thunder together without also having a guiding technique. Taking advantage of the opportunity, the dojo owner mocks the old men and proposes a 50,000 bet that his students will easily crush the school's grand champion in the final extra fight, and the old men take the bait immediately so as not to lose face. With everything settled, the judge calls the 2 finalists to the center of the ring and announces the start of the ultimate battle for first place in the school. The big Li Tu cracks his neck and tells the hero that he was very lucky not to have faced the strong guys in the first rounds, otherwise he wouldn't even be in the final. Shrugging, the kid confesses that the previous fights were incredibly boring, and that he only made it to the final because everyone else was too weak to pose a challenge. Furious at the mockery, the big guy warns that since the kid wants to get beaten up, he's going to do him the favor of showing him who's boss around here. Leaping like an angry bull, Li Tu tears up the ring floor, intending to crush the cocky newcomer with a single kick. In the air, the big guy already charges his fist with the 5 sounds of thunder, wanting to end the fight in a single movement to show absolute superiority. The crowd erupts in despair, believing the hero will die right there if he doesn't dodge the steel-faced man's special attack. But our boy doesn't budge and ignites his own hand with an insane golden energy, warning that he just wants to test the limits of his brute strength now. The crowd yells, calling the kid a suicidal lunatic for trying to block the attack head-on instead of dodging like any normal person would. In the center of the arena, the 2 fists meet and the impact wave cracks the concrete floor, exploding smoke in all directions around the court. When the dust settles, the big guy flies backward, bouncing on the ground like a rubber ball, while our hero remains standing in the same place with his hand outstretched. With wide eyes, Li Tu realizes that the skinny guy's monstrous strength completely nullified his steel-like power, without him even breaking a sweat. Without wasting any time, the protagonist advances and unleashes a frenetic sequence of 5 punches, bursting the big guy's chest open, who can only block them by desperately retreating. Spitting blood, the cocky student wonders what kind of monster the kid hides inside his skinny body to have such a heavy and fast punch at the same time. In the VIP box, the old men rise from their seats perplexed, seeing that the boy neutralized the champion's 5 thunder waves without using any technique, relying solely on sheer brute force and brute strength, humiliating the guy in the process. Muttering in astonishment, the old master tries to justify himself by saying that the boy must have been born with some kind of special mutant physique, because otherwise this brute strength would be impossible. The director nods in agreement, adding that although the boy's strength is frightening, he has not yet manifested any elemental attributes like the other two, and this could be a problem in the higher leagues. In the ring, Lee too crawls backward, coughing up blood and feeling his chest pounding from the heavy hammer blows he had taken. Surrounded by static electricity, our hero advances slowly and warns the big guy that if he wants to keep his teeth in his mouth, he'd better declare defeat right away. In a last desperate effort, the big steel car surges forward, yelling that it won't give up first place so easily. Sighing, the boy murmurs that he only wanted to test the brute strength of his mortal body, but his opponent broke too quickly. Raising his right hand, he signals that since his opponent wants to give it their all, he will also show a little respect for the attempt. With a snap, the hero's hand explodes in a blaze of flames mixed with blinding lightning, illuminating the entire arena with unstable energy. Watching the light show, Lee too freezes in his tracks, his mouth agape, unable to believe that the skinny guy also knows how to use elemental externalization. In the VIP box, the old men jump up again, stammering and rubbing their eyes to make sure of what they're seeing. Screaming hysterically, the old master points at the boy, shouting that in addition to his mutant physique, he has also mastered the techniques of thunder and fire guidance, which transforms him into a living nightmare. Unleashing the attack, the hero gives the big guy no time to think and fires a fused punch that tears through the arena in a storm of fire and lightning bolts. Taking a direct hit, Lee too realizes that the boy's elemental force pierces through his steel defense as if it were nothing. Looking at the fallen giant, the hero speaks in a cold tone, saying that he has already revealed his secret move and now the game is truly over. Charging the final blow, the kid raises his gleaming fist and declares the fight over, invoking the thunder punch at maximum power. Unleashing the 9 sounds of thunder, the hit echoes like a nuclear bomb, exploding the big guy's defense and sweeping the entire court with the shockwave. Spinning upside down in the air, Lee too can only yell, asking how on earth someone can release 9 perfect thunder echoes like that. Hitting his back against the wall outside the ring, the big guy instantly passes out, ending the fight in style and with a lot of destruction. In the VIP box, the pretentious dojo owner and the smug instructor swallow hard, speechless after witnessing their student's humiliation. The old master breaks the silence laughing like a madman, and shouting that the boy has truly uttered the 9 sounds and that his school has just given birth to a god of war. Trembling with emotion, the director asks the master if that boy is the same mysterious genius who disappeared in the forest that day, and the old man frantically agrees. With a mocking smile, the director turns to the dojo owner and warns that when a monster of this caliber comes to the training camp, the rich dojo students are going to have a hard time at his hands. With his hands in his pockets, our hero descends the arena's staircase, listening to the director boast that their school is too small a tank for a dragon that size. Thoughtfully, the director murmurs that in the magical capital, the real beasts are found, and the camp is where the monsters are unleashed upon the world. Arriving home in the late afternoon, the hero opens the door announcing that he has returned with his mission accomplished. The aunt runs from the kitchen, drying her hand on her apron, anxiously asking how the school tournament went. While serving dinner, the aunt celebrates when the boy confirms he got first place and asks if he's going straight to that government camp. The boy nods in agreement, but the lighthearted atmosphere is broken by loud, sharp knocks on the front door. The aunt answers the door, and a flashy woman covered in jewelry enters the house without asking permission, asking with a disgusted look if this is Su Hong's house. The boy gets up from the table suspiciously, crossing his arms, and asks who the rich woman is and what she wants in his house at this hour of the night. Fanning herself with her fancy handbag, the socialite throws it in his face that she's the mother of the boy who came in 4th place in the tournament, and demands that the hero give up his spot to give it to her little son. Pulling a wad of bills from her purse, the woman throws 30,000 on the table in a snobbish tone, saying it's enough money to shut the poor kid up. Staring at the money, the hero frowns without saying anything while the uncle gets up from his chair, his face grimacing from the insult. Losing her patience, the woman starts yelling that the camp is a place for grown-ups, that students without resources die easily there, and that she's doing the boy's poor family a favor. Pointing her finger, stained with jewels, she shouts that the rich kids at the camp eat strength pills for breakfast, and that the hero will only be a punching bag for them if he doesn't sell his spot. Startled by the shouting, the aunt grabs her uncle's arm and asks the boy worriedly if the camp is really as dangerous as the crazy woman is saying. The uncle hugs his wife, asking her to stay calm and not listen to the envious neighbor. Facing his nephew, the uncle asks in a serious tone if the boy guarantees he can return alive from that cursed place if he decides to go. With eyes gleaming blue, the hero replies firmly and dryly that he guarantees his own life in no uncertain terms. Hearing this, the uncle turns to the woman and throws her out of the house, cursing the rich woman and saying that he trusts the promise of his nephew, who has become the pillar of the family. Slamming the door shut, the woman leaves grumbling that the whole family is a bunch of ignorant, pretentious fools. Breathing a sigh of relief, the uncle turns to his wife and tells her not to worry about empty-headed people like that. Sitting back down in the chair, the hero asks his uncle if he already knew about the dangers of the camp and hid them from his aunt so as not to worry her. Shrugging, the uncle laughs and says that he's a simple guy, but knows that you don't gain strength without risking your skin from time to time. Beating his chest, the old man vows that if the kid has the guts to go to war, the whole family will support his decision to the end without question. With a sincere smile, the boy thanks his uncle and goes up to his room with a full stomach and a peaceful mind. On the building's rooftop, admiring the city lights, the hero reviews the day and thinks that the support of his uncles is the fuel he needs to not give up on the journey. Reflecting alone, he murmurs that he cannot betray their trust and that he needs to become even more monstrous to protect the humble little house they built. Opening the holographic panel, he checks his balance and sees that he has 285 martial points left from the tournament, finding the amount a pittance compared to what he spent before. Scrolling down, he notices that his mortal body has hit 36%, and decides to focus all his energy there to withstand the beating from the overpowered geniuses he'll encounter at the national camp. Spilling the points mercilessly, the boy begins to glow red, and we see his muscles inflating and becoming brutally defined on his chest and arms, keeping pace with each click of the system. The process stops at 64% of the lethal limit, and he sighs, calculating that he's 1/3 away from reaching the bar and becoming a perfect war tank before moving on to the next level. Fiddled with the panel, he realized with shock that the thunder and fire guidance techniques he had painstakingly gathered the previous day had leveled up to level 2 on their own. Scratching his head, he deduces that since he trained all night without using points from the system, the manual effort also counts towards the natural evolution of techniques. Excited by the discovery, he reignites the two energies, fusing thunder and fire, promising himself that he will stay up all night training hard to level up to level 3 before the trip. The camera cuts to dawn the next day, with the sun rising and illuminating the buildings of the big city. On the roof, the hero opens his eyes, his guiding techniques gleaming at level 3, a victorious smile etched on his sweaty face. Reading the panel, he celebrates because, in addition to the technique increasing the effort of the workout, it also gave him 3 extra vitality points as a bonus. Going down to the street with his backpack on his back, his uncle warns him to be careful, and his aunt shouts from the door for him to come back quickly if things get bad. Jokingly, the boy asks his aunt not to be pessimistic, and promises that he will bring another first-place trophy in his suitcase when he returns home. Watching the boy disappear down the street, the aunt cries softly on her uncle's shoulder, grumbling that if he doesn't worry about her nephew, who will? Giving her a kiss on the head, the uncle laughs, hugging the woman and assuring her that the boy has become a lion and knows how to fend for himself in the big world now. Walking down the main street, the hero carries a long case on his back containing his new spear, ready for the challenge that awaits him in the capital. Out of nowhere, a red convertible sports car screeches its tires, cutting in front of him and nearly running the boy over in the middle of the avenue. The window rolls down, and the blonde president in sunglasses and a leather jacket tells the boy to get into the car without much ceremony. From the view from above, we see the red car speeding down the highway, leaving the city towards the magical capital. With the wind whipping in her face, the president accelerates, exceeding the speed limit, while the hero holds onto his seat to avoid being thrown off. Curious, the boy asks the reason for the surprise ride since they could have met directly at the campsite, and she is a very busy woman. Looking in the rearview mirror, the blonde warns that as the leader of the association she has access to the other competitors' files, and needed to give the kid a dose of reality before he arrives thinking he owns the world. Explaining the mess, she drops the bombshell, saying that the 3 worst monsters in the camp have already surpassed the level 1 martial artist mark in the advanced stage and are almost reaching rank 2. To make matters worse, the president says that these rich people have been training in B-rank techniques since they were born and have the best equipment money can buy, making their lives very easy. Calculating in his head, the hero figures out that to become rank 2, the guy needs 200 vitality points and understands that the guys at the camp aren't messing around. But relaxed, he ignores the warning about rank B techniques because his cheating system allows him to upgrade any move to perfect mastery in minutes, so he's not afraid of a well-trained play. The blonde notices the boy's composure and warns him that he can't get complacent and think he's invincible just because he's the best in the small town. Turning his face to the wind, our hero gives a wry smile, confirming that he understood the message, while the president murmurs to herself that the boy's coldness is his greatest weapon and that she has faith that he will crush the rich in the end. Tearing through the Tianlin Mountains, the president's car accelerates toward the unknown. Inside the vehicle, the blonde explains that the training camp is located right in the middle of a nest of sinister beasts. She then details that the competition is brutal and that even the beasts at the edge of the mountain are at level 1 or higher. To demonstrate the danger, the scene cuts to a giant demonic tiger devouring its prey in the middle of the woods. With its glowing red eyes, the monster shows that it's not there to play games and that death lurks around every corner. Feeling a chill down our spine, our boy jokingly asks if there are any bugs watching them at that exact moment. But instead of fear, the boy gives a sly smile, confessing that the idea of a brutal massacre is getting him quite excited. Upon arriving at the destination, the car parks in front of a giant military camp full of fences and security guards. Getting out of the vehicle, the hero puts his backpack on his back and notices the crowd of young people gathered in the courtyard. Analyzing the competition, he notices that the guys there are tough and exude a heavy energy, like they've seen blood before. In silence, students from various cities face each other, measuring one another's strength. Calmly, our protagonist adjusts his spearhead and walks into the middle of the crowd, ready for whatever comes his way. At that point, a suit-clad officer climbs onto the platform and announces that the entrance exam will begin as soon as everyone arrives. Complaining quietly, the students grumble that they are wasting time waiting for the rich and spoiled families to show up. As if by arrangement, a convoy of luxury cars appears on the road, drawing the attention of the entire camp. Parking with pomp, the drivers in suits open the back doors for the dapper passengers to get out. Parading like celebrities, 3 prodigies from noble families appear, drawing sighs and gossip from the crowd. Passing through the midst of the common people, the rich kids flaunt their arrogance while the ordinary students make way, dying of envy. From afar, our hero crosses his arms and watches the scene with a look of pure boredom. With a mocking little smile, he murmurs that he's dying to see if these so-called geniuses have any firepower, or if it's all just makeup. Cutting the mood, the officer on the platform clears his throat and tells everyone to shut up and listen to the rules of the game. Pointing to the forest, he reveals that the actual training base is 30 kilometers away, in the heart of the mountain. Explaining the mission, the old man says that the group needs to hunt specific beasts to steal the tokens hidden inside them if they want to enter the camp. Sweating profusely, a student remarks that walking 30 kilometers amidst high-level monsters is practically asking to return in a body bag. Calculating in his head, the little protagonist thinks the 8-hour deadline is excessive and plans to use his free time to farm martial points until he can't take it anymore. Yelling with indignation, a boy complains that the test is unfair because someone weak can get lucky, while a strong person can cross paths with an invincible beast and die for nothing. With a frown, the officer doesn't like the children's crying tone at all. In a violent outburst, the man in the suit throws in their faces that the real battlefield has no justice, and that monsters don't ask permission to kill. Speaking frankly, he shouts that if anyone there is afraid of death, they'd better turn around and get out of there so as not to waste the time of those who want to fight. Smiling scornfully, one of the rich kids agrees with the officer, calling the complainers cowardly trash who shouldn't even have left their houses. Boiling with rage, the offended student points his finger at the rich kid, challenging him to a fistfight right there. Before the fight breaks out, the officer warns that violence inside the staging area results in immediate expulsion, but stealing a friend's token outside the gate is allowed. Shocked, the students realize that in addition to escaping a monster, they will have to survive a bloody battle royale against their own classmates. Pulling at his jacket, our boy gives a devilish grin, reveling in the rule that allows him to ruthlessly farm the competition. Doing the mental calculations, he already imagines the mountain of martial arts points he'll earn beating up those cocky playboys. Pressing the stopwatch, the officer shouts that the race has begun and orders the entire herd to run into the forest. Like a herd of buffalo, the kids race through the gates, pushing anyone in their way to gain an advantage. A short time later, in the middle of the dense forest, the two guys who were fighting at the campsite were already beating each other to death. Unleashing a fire technique, the dapper guy tries to carbonize his rival, who screams, narrowly dodging the flames. Fighting back with everything he's got, the other guy unleashes a cutting wind blast, creating a whirlwind in the middle of the trees. In a fierce exchange, the two clash techniques, raising dust and destroying the surrounding scenery. Without giving them a break, they continue the brawl, crossing the woods at an impressive speed by normal standards. But perched on a high branch, our hero watches the little show, leaning on his spear with a huge look of disappointment on his face. Sighing with boredom, he murmurs that those geniuses from the capital are a bad joke, and don't even come close to what he expected. Down below, the rich kid pins his rival against the tree trunk, calling him a commoner and saying that no amount of effort can surpass innate talent. Tired of hearing so much nonsense, the kid jumps down from the tree, telling the snob to stop humiliating the working class. With eyes gleaming with malice, the little protagonist stares at the pair and mentally thanks them for the free martial arts points that fell from the sky. Landing in the middle of the commotion, he orders the two to stop their pointless squabble immediately. Holding the spear still wrapped in the cloth, the hero smiles broadly and invites the two idiots to play with him instead of fighting each other. Indignant at the rookie's audacity, the fighters stop everything and ask who the skinny guy thinks he is to interrupt a life-or-death duel. Without losing his mocking tone, our boy explains that they misunderstood and suggests that the pair team up to try and beat him up. Consumed by hatred, the two forget their rivalry and advance together, yelling that the newcomer is digging his own grave. In the blink of an eye, the hero vanishes from their sight and reappears like a blur, tearing through the wind before the guys even blink. Landing a brutal flying kick, he sends the first fighter flying, breaking branches along the way. Collapsing at the foot of a tree, the dapper man spits blood, unable to understand how he was knocked out with a single blow by a nobody. Startled by the speed, the second guy tries to fight back by swinging a wooden club towards the protagonist's head. With ninja-like reflexes, the kid dodges the deadly blow with absurd ease, leaving his rival hanging. Turning his body, he brings the heavy spear straight down on his opponent's face, smashing the unfortunate man's face into the ground. Taking the sharp blow, the madman tumbles onto the grass, kicking up dirt and losing consciousness from the jolt. Walking slowly towards the fallen bodies, the hero rests his spear on his shoulder and laughs in their faces, reminding them that ordinary cultivators should not be underestimated. Far away in a room full of monitors, the camp officials watch the massacre through the security cameras, shocked by what happened. Analyzing the screen, a suit-clad old man decrees that the two defeated individuals are not yet eliminated because they did not press the rescue button on their bracelets. Back in the forest, the rich kid wakes up groaning in pain, feeling his bones cracked from the hero's blow. Crawling backward, he sees his rival waking up as well, and the two stare at each other with funeral expressions. Boiling with hatred, the preppy guy punches the ground, swearing that he has never been so ashamed in his life and that the skinny guy will pay dearly for the humiliation. Sitting on the grass, the other guy takes a deep breath and agrees, saying that if he hadn't underestimated the rookie, the story would be different. In a moment of silence, the former enemies exchange glances, realizing that they now have a common target. Swallowing his pride, the commoner apologizes for the earlier fight, and the rich kid accepts, admitting that the guy's strength is real. Shaking hands, the two form a sinister alliance, deciding to hunt down our boy together to wash away the dishonor with blood. Meanwhile, the protagonist couldn't care less about revenge and runs through the forest using the void step as if he were strolling in the park. Suddenly, his ears picked up a heavy noise, crushing the dry leaves right behind him. Stopping on the branch, he peers down and comes face to face with a herd of giant tusk wild boars drooling with rage. Snorting loudly, the level 1 beast sense the human's presence and lock murderous eyes upon him. Fearless, the entire herd advances, trampling through the trees like out-of-control tractors. But the hero doesn't even think about running away, and already has his lightning fists descending from the heavens, with the 9 echoes of thunder ready to turn giant pig into fried bacon. Landing gracefully amidst the smoky carcasses, the hero finishes off the last boar of the herd with a precise spear thrust. Smiling contentedly, he checks the panel and notices that the martial points bar is rising rapidly, yielding 7 points for each pig killed. Sighing, he realizes that killing level 1 monsters no longer gives as much XP as before because his level has increased too much. Ripping open the belly of one of the monsters, he rummages through the poor creature's guts, searching for the blessed camp admission form. Wiping the blood-covered knife, the boy grumbles that he's already opened up a dozen wild boars and hasn't found even a speck of that token inside. Using the void step, he jumps from tree to tree grumbling that killing these creatures is easy, but doesn't give enough points to level up his vitality. Checking his watch, the boy complains that he's been running around like crazy for an hour and has only found weak animals that die in a completely uninspired attack. Suddenly, a gigantic black figure leaps from the shadows, its sharp claws aimed at the hero's back in a stealthy attack. With a sadistic grin, the little protagonist dodges in midair, recognizing the monster as a level 1 Black Knight Tiger attacker and celebrates finally finding a decent challenge. Without even touching the ground, the kid fires the Finger of the Void at a perfect level, piercing the tiger's steel defense with a lethal beam of light. The monstrous beast falls stiff to the ground, raising dust and with a smoking hole in the middle of its forehead to tell the tale. Landing near the carcass, the hero rests his spear on his shoulder, amused by how easy it was to dispatch a high-level beast using his current strength. With a swift blow, he rips open the tiger's belly amidst the blood and filth, searching for the entry pass. Wiping his hands, the boy sees the system bar adding up to a handsome 35 martial points for the feline's death, and becomes much more cheerful. But frustration strikes again when he turns the tiger upside down and realizes that the giant feline hadn't swallowed the token drug either. Sighing heavily, he murmurs that there are only 5 hours of testing left, and he still hasn't secured a spot to enter the main camp. Walking through the forest, he deduces that the strong animals that swallowed the tokens must be deeper in the mountain where normal students don't dare to go. Scratching his chin, the kid calculates that if he kills 20 low-level monsters in the same time it takes to find a high-level one, he'll farm many more points for the system. Driven by greed, he decides to change his strategy, focusing on killing everything that moves to accumulate points for the next evolution of his mortal body before the test ends. Running like crazy, the little Pratinho plunges into the jungle, killing everything in his path and leaving a trail of blood wherever he goes. In a bloody fight, he cuts off the legs of a giant spider that tries to wrap him in an acidic web in the middle of the darkness. In another area, we see a pile of armored rhinos sprawled on the ground while the boy jumps over them, laughing heartily. Facing a mid-level earth bear, the hero doesn't back down and uses his spear to block the beast's deadly swipe. Landing an explosive elbow strike, he throws the bear backward, crushing the monster's snout. Seeing the bear's aura glow, the boy prepares his fists and announces that the beast is done for. With a thunderbolt fused with fire, he crushes the bear's chest in a burst of lightning that illuminates the entire clearing. Falling on its back, the beast lets out one last agonizing roar before finally fading away. Without pausing for rest, the boy enters a stone bird's nest and emerges covered in dust and feathers. Shooting red rays from his fingers, he takes down a swarm of vampire bats that try to attack by surprise. Finally, an alpha wolf attempts a stealthy attack, but the hero intercepts in midair and plunges his spear into the beast's neck with a single thrust. Gasping and bathed in monster blood, our hero breaks into a victorious smile, feeling his body fry with the adrenaline of the subsequent fights. Opening the system screen, he celebrates that he has accumulated 254 martial points in the massacre, and that he only needs a little more to maximize his mortal body. Watching the sun go down, he sees that there are still 3 hours left until the test is over, and decides that he will not stop until the bar hits the 100% limit. Out of nowhere, a deafening sound rips through the skies, cutting through the calm of the forest and making the trees tremble as if it were an aerial earthquake. Startled, the boy looks up, trying to find the source of that noise that's shaking his insides. Cutting through the clouds, a giant bird bathed in golden flames dives towards the mountain, obscuring the sun with its colossal wings. Letting out a screech that cracks the rocks, the monster reveals itself to be the legendary Golden Rock Bird King, a nightmarish beast that even masters dare not face alone. Holding the spear tightly, the boy plants his feet firmly on the ground while the gust of wind from the creature's wings almost uproots the trees. Resisting the overwhelming pressure, the little protozoan realizes that the monster's strength is at such an absurd level that just flapping its wings makes the entire forest cry. Watching the creature land in the distance, he wonders what a monster king is doing strolling around a mountain that was supposed to be a training area for beginner students. Feeling his own insignificance, the boy murmurs that he thought he owned the world for killing the forest animals, but compared to that thing, he's just an annoying insect. Widening his eyes, he notices a tiny dot flying alongside the monster high above. Focusing his vision, he realizes that the tiny dot is not a smaller bird, but rather a concentrated ball of light chasing the giant beast. And from the midst of the light, a stylish, bearded old man floats down and shouts in a thunderous voice, ordering Rock Dowerado to stop making a mess in his backyard. The giant bird responds with another deafening screech, yelling in the old man's face that the mountain is his and he will not obey any human. Floating in the air, the big master gives a confident smile and warns that if the beast doesn't want to listen peacefully, it will hear it through pure and simple beatings. Unleashing a giant sword technique, the crown strikes the monster's wing, creating an explosion of golden sparks in the sky. Retreating, the giant bird chirps furiously and flaps its wings, launching a tornado of flames straight into the old man's face to retaliate against the insult. But the level 7 master doesn't even blink and cuts the fire tornado in half, grumbling that the thing makes too much noise for too little action. In a devastating combo, the old man advances, exchanging blows with the claws of the golden rock, and each impact unleashes a shockwave that sweeps away the clouds from the clear sky. The camera focuses on a colossal punch that the old man lands on the beast's chest, causing the giant bird to spit blood and plummet to the ground. Shouting with authority, the master warns that he will not repeat the warning, and orders the creature to disappear from that mountain before he decides to make giant chicken soup for dinner. Fallen and humiliated, Rock limps back to flight, murmuring that the game is over, but promises that revenge will be violent one of these days. Watching the beast flee with its tail between its legs, the old man sighs and adjusts his cloak, making sure the area is safe again. Using a megaphone of spiritual energy, the master announces to the entire camp that he is Grand Master Chin Tianli of rank 7 and assures the students not to panic, that the test continues as normal. Hidden in the bushes, our hero feels the air pressure decrease and sits down on a rock, panting after witnessing that battle of titans. Looking up, the boy clenches his fists and swears that sooner or later he will reach the same level of power and dominate the skies just like the old warrior. Cutting to camp headquarters, we see the base full of military tents and a large central building where the leadership is monitoring the students. Master Chin lands smoothly in the base courtyard, and the officers in suits are already lined up, saluting their leader with the utmost morale. One of the suited directors praises the master's brutal strength and comments that his reputation for crushing beasts with his bare fists is no exaggeration. After all, he chased away a monster king with his bare hands. Cutting off the praise, Master Chin warns that he has no time for flattery and orders the man in the suit to open the monitoring room to see which students withstood the pressure of the giant fight without fainting or wetting their pants. Entering the dark room lined with screens, the officers show the recordings and point out that most of the kids couldn't handle the aura of the golden rock and are all sprawled on the floor in a state of shock. But Master Chin focuses on a screen and points to a hairy boy who killed a pack of advanced-level tigers without even breaking a sweat, asking who the muscular prodigy is. The director reads the file and says that Wang Tianchuo is the son of the city lord who has an absurd mutant physique and hits 300 vitality in the initial state. The old master nods in agreement, but his eyes already dart to another screen where a short-haired girl dodges blows using wind manipulation techniques that are far too perfect for her age. The man in the suit checks the notes and reveals that the girl is Xiao Yan, a wind spiritual master and also the daughter of one of the most filthy rich families in the capital. Showing 2 more students who are massacring the animals, the director lists that they are all children of the 3 noble families who arrived by train at the beginning of the test, confirming that talent and money go hand in hand. Sighing in frustration, Master Chin complains, asking if in this generation only noble families have decent warriors, and questions where are the geniuses from the public school and the common people he sent to watch over. With a blank look on his face, the principal mumbles that the students in normal schools are still too weak and can barely take down a beginner-level monster without giving up. At that moment, an assistant officer at the back of the room drops the tablet on the floor and shouts, asking what that crazy thing flashing on the screen in Sector 9 is. The cameras switch focus, and Master Chin's eyes widen as he sees that right after the golden rock leaves, there's still a madman running like crazy through the forest, hunting beasts with blood in his eyes. Startled, the secretary holds the paper and stammers that the boy is Su Hong, the unknown genius from high school whom nobody thought much. Curious, the old man asks to rewind the tape and see how the kid survived the pressure, and why the assistant is so nervous about the recording. As the images roll, the suited director also screams in panic, completely losing his elegant composure and pointing his trembling finger at the giant screen. Not understanding the shouting, Master Chin scratches his beard indignantly and asks why two rank 5 officers are freaking out in fear of a rookie brat from a public school. In utter shock, one wonders if this kid is even human. Upon reading the protagonist's profile, people see that his compatibility is 100% in everything, and doubt that a monster of that level actually exists. Filled with emotion, Grandmaster Chin questions how a prodigy who appears once every millennium emerged from a hole like Star City. With a clenched fist, the old man brazenly celebrates, saying he hit the jackpot. However, the assistant cuts the fun short, warning that the boy's vitality is far too low for his talent, because the madman decided to train 7 guiding techniques at the same time. In a flash, the master understands the reason for the low level, and curses the association president for not warning the boy that focusing on the 7 elements is pure martial suicide. Immediately afterwards, an officer announces that the students are arriving at the camp, and the old man tells everyone to go and take a look. Outside, the rich kids fawn over the master, bowing in reverence, and the old man praises the trio of geniuses from the capital. Meanwhile, the regular students arrive, dragging themselves along and complaining that they almost died of fright from that giant bird. With time almost up, people start mocking us, saying to end it quickly because anyone who hasn't made it this far is just plain weak. Worried, the Grand Master looks at the forest and prays that his golden prodigy hasn't gotten lost in the undergrowth. Suddenly, a silhouette appears on the trail, and the old man breathes a sigh of relief, seeing that the boy has finally shown up. Covered in blood and holding his spear, our hero arrives grumbling that he focused so much on farming points that he almost missed the time limit. Seeing the protagonist's condition, the other students mock his dirty appearance without realizing that the blood on his clothes is not his, but rather the result of a massacre. Then one of the guys he humiliated earlier warns his rich partner to calm down because inside the camp, they'll have plenty of chances to take down the newbie. From afar, the prodigy girl comments that arriving at the last second is something only a specialist can do, and the metalhead simply agrees, finding it interesting. Without mincing words, the officer announces that time is up. Anyone who's outside is out, and immediately begins explaining the camp rules. Showing off the modern buildings, the man in the suit lists the main areas such as the gravity room, the motion track, and the arena for the beasts. In the main pavilion, he reveals that there, people can exchange points for techniques, remedies, and overpowered weapons up to level A. Excited by the chance to get our hands on some awesome equipment, our boy celebrates inwardly, saying that this place is paradise. But the officer throws a bucket of cold water on the idea, warning that to use all of this, you have to pay with contribution points. In his explanation, the old man says that the only way to earn this camp money is by doing well in training, and whoever is a monster gets a bonus. Finally, he releases the students to train and sends the wounded to the dormitory, so they don't kick the bucket right there. Once inside the room, the hero is happy to have a space all to himself, because that way he can use the system's cheats without anyone bothering him. Looking at the blue screen, he sees the 354 points accumulated and decrees that the time has come to upgrade the mortal body to its maximum limit. The moment he drops the stitches, his muscles begin to swell and glow as his body rises to a level of excruciating pain. With eyes sparkling, the pop-up notification warns that the limit has been broken, and the progress has exceeded 100%. At this moment, we see the boy's physique reshaping the cells, resembling a constellation of pure brute force being forged by sheer willpower. The energy quickly overflows violently, creating a shockwave that shatters the windows and destroys the entire room. After the dust settles, the boy looks at his own hand, which is now smoking, and feels the absurd change in his own body. With a confident smile, he remarks that the mere explosion of energy from his body has already generated a bizarre destructive power. Right away in the system, he finds the name Supreme Lord's Body Strange, and reads the description warning that this is the most overpowered strength-focused physique in the world. With his spirit level bar at 0, the protagonist starts drooling, imagining what kind of monster he'll become if he manages to level it up again. With his backpack on his back, the hero decides to go out into the courtyard to put this new physicist's ignorance to the test. At that moment, he lightly squeezes the spear's handle, and gets a fright when the super-resistant metal weapon almost cracks in half from just the pressure of his fingers. In shock, he cries his heart out, remembering that the gun cost an arm and a leg and he can't break the toy for nothing. But he soon relaxes, remembering that he picked up a spear from a dead guy in the forest, and decides that he urgently needs to farm camp points to get an A-rank weapon. On the way to the warehouses, the boy thinks aloud about the rule of only earning points by wearing a weighted vest and wants to see if he can handle a few hundred kilos with ease. In the crowded warehouse, the crew is in the back, yelling in amazement at a guy carrying 3 tons on his back. With a light leap, the rich monster finds the weight very manageable while the extras cry, saying that a normal wrestler can barely lift 200 kilos. In the Wind Girl's view, the guy's brute strength is surreal, calling him a clueless, barbaric bull. Back in the control room, the assistant comments that the boy easily lifting 3 tons is living proof of the barbaric godlike physique he possesses. At that moment, the assistant changes the subject and asks Master Chin when they are going to reprimand our protagonist for training 7 elements at the same time. Against this idea, the old man warns that going straight to the point will hurt the boy's pride, and that they need to create a situation so that he will give up on this madness on his own. With a sly smile, the old man asks if the night raid team is ready, and the secretary informs him that it takes a while to even out the attacker's strength. Ready for a fight, one of the sadistic instructors laughs, saying that the newbies are too relaxed and will cry blood when they are surprised by an attack in the middle of the night. In the strategy, Master Chin orders an advanced-level fighter to be thrown against the protagonist to mercilessly crush the kid and force him to listen to advice afterward. The worried assistant warns that sending a guy with 5,000 power against the low-vibration boy could destroy his psyche forever. Furious, the old man shouts that he's doing this for the boy's own good, and if he breaks down from a beating, it's because he was never anything more than weak trash. Back in the courtyard, the group runs over announcing that the 3-ton madman is going to the gravity room, and everyone follows to gossip. Curious about the movement, our hero decides that he'll go and snoop around his rival's training session in a little while as well. Before that, he picks up a high-tech bracelet from a box, asking if it's the toy that adds up contribution points. Amidst the heavy vests, he walks past the shelves, reading the labels that range from 500 kilograms upwards. His jaw dropping, he stops in front of the 10-ton suit of armor, shocked by its weight and wondering who the mutant is who wears such a thing. When he put the thing on his shoulder, the kid trembled, admitting that he could stand upright but wouldn't be able to fight fast for very long. In the lightest 5-ton vest, he punches the air and feels that this is the perfect limit to train and get stronger. With the weight on his body, he cracks his neck and decides he's going to wear this equipment all day. Along the way, he becomes curious to know if the 3 prodigies also lifted 5 tons, or if they can handle more than him. Already in the hallway, he murmurs that watching the rich kids train should give him some new ideas to copy later. Through the giant glass, the crowd outside screams in shock, seeing that the big guy entered the gravity machine wearing his 3-ton vest without taking it off. To make matters worse, the panel indicates that gravity is doubled, and the audience calculates that the guy is carrying the equivalent of 6 tons on his back while struggling to stay upright. With his arms crossed, our hero pouts, thinking 3 tons is a pittance, and understands that his physique has already far surpassed those prodigies. Behind him, the 2 strongmen from school give up training in front of everyone, grumbling that they're going to be too embarrassed next to those monsters. Disappointed by the cowardice, the little protagonist ignores the pressure and advances with his head held high towards the classroom door. In an attempt to restrain the boy, an extra tells him to be patient and wait for the arena to empty if he doesn't want to become a laughingstock. Ignoring them, he goes straight in while the guys call him clueless, deducing that he's not wearing a weighted vest to try and beat his rival's multiplier. Standing on the platform, the boy smiles, thrilled at the chance to level up in front of everyone. In his calculations, he concludes that doubling gravity with 5 tons on his chest would generate an absurd weight of 10 tons that would crush him in minutes. To avoid looking bad and to be able to train properly, he adjusts the panel to 1.5 times, focused on enduring as much time as possible inside. When the machine starts, the weight of the world falls on his shoulders and the boy groans, feeling his body fry under the pressure. Outside, the audience bursts into laughter, calling him trash for setting the gravity so low, thinking he has no extra charge at all. Ignoring the comments, he sits down to meditate and realizes that the heavy atmosphere hinders his energy, but the speed of his workout increases dramatically. 2 hours pass and the boy remains a statue in the middle of the room, covered by a flaming aura that burns everything around him. Breathless and with his eyes bursting with energy, he finally cuts off the meditation, smiling at the insane result. Reading the system screen, he rejoices that the level of all elements has risen, and vitality has jumped straight to 130 points in the purebred race. Turning off the control panel, our boy can barely stand, he's so tired. With heavy steps, he finally crosses the door of the gravity room, looking like a zombie. Outside, the bullies mock him, saying that the loser couldn't even last half an hour inside. Sweating profusely, the hero complains that the weighted suit has turned into an oven and won't let his body breathe. At that point, the troublemakers' eyes widened in shock as they noticed an absurd detail. They quickly realized that the kid had been wearing the weighted vest the whole time and survived the doubled gravity. Trying to maintain composure, their leader downplays the feat, saying that the boy is still trash compared to the monster carrying 3 tons. Suddenly, a murmur fills the hallway when the big guy decides to leave the workout. Everyone fawns over the guy with the tied-back hair, praising his brutal physical strength. Facing the giant from afar, the little protagonist analyzes his physique and concludes that the guy's strength is only acceptable. Stretching, the big guy sighs in relief at finally getting that weight off his shoulders. Soon the rich kid with white hair approaches and challenges his partner to try their luck in the movement techniques room. Listening to the conversation, our hero becomes super interested when he discovers that a level of technique is being used at the camp. With a confident smile, he acknowledges that he has a lot of brute strength, but is in urgent need of a high-level agility move. Without thinking twice, the kid heads straight to the techniques room, focused on learning the cloud step no matter what. Upon entering the room, the scene is one of war, with arrows flying everywhere on the hardest difficulty. Amidst the chaos, the rich, white-haired boy dodges everything with surreal speed, leaving a trail of light wherever he goes. Amazed by the scene, our boy thinks the show-off is just showing off and throwing petals into the air to look stylish. However, the system beeps at the same time and begins to analyze the steps of the technique in the protagonist's mind. Behind him, the bullies realize that the kid is standing there like a statue in the middle of the room. Laughing, the guys mock the hero, thinking it's impossible to learn an A-level move just by watching. But in the protagonist's mind, the magic is already happening, with the movements being copied down to the smallest detail. At an absurd speed, the system's learning bar rises and snaps at 100%. Smiling victoriously, the hero celebrates having just mastered the first A-level movement technique, without paying a thing. With his hand on his chin, he admits that the rich kid's pose was quite embarrassing, but it was the only way to copy the skill quickly. Now satisfied, he decides it's time to go to the arena of beasts and focus on killing monsters to gain vitality points. But when he turns his back, he doesn't understand why the whole room is staring at him with panicked expressions. That's when he discovers that he ended up repeating the rich kid's light movements in the real world without realizing it, and attracted too much attention. Terrified by the skinny kid's hidden power, the bullies run away in terror, begging him not to do that again. Through the shadows of the corridor, the hero's keen senses beep, warning that someone else is stealthily following him. Wielding clubs, the bullies set up an ambush near the door, vowing to beat the newcomer to a pulp. The camera cuts to show the immense training arena filled with armored cages for wild beasts. Inside, the big guy and the girl with the ponytail are arguing about who can kill more monsters in combat. With a mocking smile, the girl warns the strongman to stop underestimating the true power of a spiritual master. Watching everything from the sidelines, the protagonist is thrilled to finally see a spiritual master fight in practice. Out of nowhere, the girl takes flight and floats gracefully in the air, leaving everyone in shock. Impressed, the hero remembers that walking on air is a grandmaster skill, and realizes that her magic is way too overpowered. With a snap of her fingers, she launches several energy blades and slaughters 3 advanced tigers in the blink of an eye. But the game turns serious when a colossal mutant bear roars and charges at her with bloodlust. Without showing fear, the girl uses telekinesis and traps the giant monster in midair as if it were a rag doll. Struggling like crazy, the bear tries to escape, but the girl's mental strength crushes the animal's resistance by force. Analyzing the combat, our boy realizes that her weapons are made of pure light controlled remotely. Filled with admiration, he concludes that a spiritual master crushes any ordinary hand-to-hand fighter without even trying. Suddenly, the sky above the arena glows brightly, and a gigantic energy sword appears out of nowhere, blinding everyone. Tearing through the wind, the colossal blade descends mercilessly and decapitates a giant snake in front of everyone. Covered in a golden aura, the giant from before reveals that he is the master of the devastating attack. Holding the hilt of the Sword of Light, he poses like a divine warrior ready for war. Confused, our hero wonders if that's a real weapon, since it should weigh tons to be that size. Nearby, the rich kid with white hair explains that the sword is a level attack technique, exclusive to spiritual masters. The crowd in the back is gossiping, shocked by the brute's talent in mastering such a destructive and rare skill. Bursting with excitement, the protagonist realizes that the camp is full of overpowered techniques, just waiting to be copied. Without missing a beat, the big guy delivers a punch of pure brute force and explodes another monster with a hard blow. Laughing to himself, the boy notices that the guy is a complete monster, hitting hard both with magic and with a normal punch. Deciding to be patient, he saves the desire to steal the technique for the future, since he now has a different life priority. Opening the system, he sighs, seeing that his spirit attribute is only at 26 points, which prevents him from becoming a maid. Clenching his fist in anger, he vows to start a massacre in the arena to farm the points he needs for evolution. Outside, the bullies watch the boy enter the danger zone and think he assigned his own death warrant. Taking advantage of the crowd's distraction with the prodigies, they decide it's the perfect time to invade and beat up the kid by surprise. But when the leader of the small group orders an attack, one of the henchmen freezes, pointing a trembling finger at the security screen. In absolute panic, the guy stammers and can't take his eyes off the terrifying images that are passing by. On the giant screen, our hero appears surrounded by more than 10 advanced-level beasts drooling lethal venom. The bullies tremble, thinking the kid has gone completely mad and is going to become monster food in 3 seconds. Inside the cage, the boy snaps his fingers and assumes a fighting stance with a huge grin on his face. By calling the animals to fight, he provokes the entire horde, ordering them all to attack together to save his time. Leading the herd, a bizarre mutant scorpion advances, roaring and snapping its sharp pincers. Using the newly stolen movement technique, the hero becomes a blur and instantly disappears from the monster's sight. Through punches with the fury of a titan, he tears the beasts apart one by one, causing thunderous sounds throughout the entire arena. In a bloody ballet, the boy leaves a trail of light and destruction, crushing any creature that crosses his path. Watching everything through the camera, the cowards in the hallway are shocked, wondering if they're having a collective hallucination. Breaking in a cold sweat, one of them notices the way the protagonist is moving and finds the flying technique dangerously familiar. Stuttering, the henchman deduces that the skinny guy is using the same cloud-like steps as the genius from the other training room. Horrified, they conclude that the little monster learned the level technique just by looking at the rich kid once. Giving up on revenge immediately, the gang leader drops his club, acknowledging that confronting the boy would be pure suicide. Trembling with fear, they agree to forget the fight and change cameras, so as not to completely soil their pants with the carnage. But when they looked at the monitor next to them, the gang's panicked faces returned, worse than before, in the face of yet another completely bizarre scene. In utter shock, someone's eyes widen as they wonder if the kid is really human or a monster in disguise. On the big screen, the protagonist's profile displays a 100% compatibility for everything, proving that the boy has an absurdly overpowered physique. Trembling with emotion, Grandmaster Chin questions how a bizarre talent, born only once in a millennium, could have sprouted in a third-rate city. Clenching his fist tightly, the old man brazenly declares that he has found a gold mine. However, the secretary breaks the mood by asking why the boy's vitality is so low considering his level of genius. Coming to his senses, the master realizes his mistake and angrily shouts that training 7 elements at the same time drains anyone's energy, and curses the mayor of the other city for allowing this madness. Immediately afterwards, the assistant announces the students' arrival at the camp, and the old man tells the team to go down and see the crowd up close. Out in the courtyard, the 3 rich prodigies bow down to their master, who lavishes praise on the elite trio. Nearby, ordinary students were dragging themselves along, panting and complaining about the fright they got from the giant bird in the middle of the forest. With the clock striking 7.5 hours into the competition, the master decrees that anyone who hasn't shown up by now is disqualified from the game. Truly worried, the old man mentally prays that our hero hasn't become monster food in the dark woods. Suddenly, a silhouette appears on the road, and the master sighs with relief to see the boy show up at the last minute. Covered in blood from head to toe, the little protagonist grumbles that he focused too much on farming points and almost exceeded the time limit. Faced with the filth of the newcomer, the bullies mock his beggar-like appearance, thinking that the skinny kid just got the beating of his life. With a sadistic grin, the gang leader promises a severe beating for the boy as soon as they set foot in the camp dormitories. From afar, true prodigies notice the aura of the injured boy and instantly realize that he hides a dangerous strength. Without ceremony, the officer announces the end of time and decrees the elimination of anyone who has fallen behind on the trail. Pointing to the training buildings, the man in the suit cites the three vital areas of gravity: movement and combat against beasts. In the main pavilion, the group discovers the chance to exchange points for techniques, remedies, and overpowered weapons up to level A. Surrounded by the crowd, our hero smiles slightly, confirming his decision that this is the perfect place to enrich his arsenal. But the instructor is honest and warns that any perks inside must be paid for using hard-earned contribution points. He then details that the only way to farm this local currency is by breaking records in daily practice tests. As night falls, the officer sends the wounded straight to the medical wing and releases the training addicts to begin their relentless grind. Back in his single room, the Pratinha celebrates the privacy of having a safe space just for him to focus on the system. Standing before the blue screen, he checks the 354 points he has accumulated in the hunt and decides to invest everything in the body. By pouring all the points at once into the mortal attribute, the boy's physique swells under a red light of pure energy. With his eyes blazing, the pain of change hits hard, but he holds firm as his body reaches its deadly limit. At a cellular level, the vision reveals the hero's physique reshaping itself like a constellation forged in brute force, breaking the 100% barrier. Overflowing with power, a violent shockwave tears through the room, shattering the window panes and shaking the walls. When the smoke clears, the boy stares at his own hand, feeling his blood boil in an insane way as he awakens. Laughing to himself, the hero celebrates the leap in strength and feels the brutal difference that his new body makes in practice. Upon reading the fine print, he discovers the Supreme Lord's Physicist class and realizes he has just gained the most overpowered resistance in the world. Focused on the panel, the boy notices the spirit bar is at 0 and already foresees the terror he will unleash when he finally levels up his magic. Wearing the jacket, the boy leaves the room eager to test the new brutality of the camp equipment. But at the first squeeze of the spear handle, the grade C metal alloy cracks like glass with just the pressure of his fingers. Breaking into a cold sweat, he panics over the damage the weapon has done, remembering that a toy like that costs an arm and a leg in an official store. Until memory saves the homeland, and he remembers the deceased who brandished the spear in the forest, relieving himself of the guilt for the damage. On the way to the training shed, the protagonist focuses on the weight vest rule and sets the goal of wearing several hundred kilograms. Arriving at the heavy equipment area, he hears a commotion and sees the crowd of extras gaping in amazement. In the center of the circle, the big hairy guy jumps, carrying 3 tons with the greatest of ease, startling the entire competition. Nearby, the instructors are praising the guy's animalistic strength, while the girl with the wind judges her colleague as a brainless bull. In the control room, the assistant assures that enduring such weight proves the absurdity of the hairy man's barbaric godlike physique. Changing the subject, the secretary asks the master about the date of the sermon in our protagonist's lecture on the madness of training 7 techniques at the same time. With a mischievous look in his eyes, the Grand Master warns of the fragility of geniuses' egos and prefers to give a practical lesson before resorting to verbal reprimand. Contemplating cowardice, the old man demands agility and asks if the team of night ninjas is ready to beat up the kids. With a maniacal grin, the veteran agrees and anticipates the widespread crying of the spoiled rookies in the middle of the night. In direct order, the old man assigns an advanced instructor to beat up our protagonist and burn his arrogance. Concerned about the damage, the assistant warns of the disparity in strength and fears for the boy's irreparable psychological trauma. Outraged by the doubt, the master slams his fist on the table and declares that a weak heart has no place at the top of the food chain. Back at the shed, curious onlookers rush to peek at the big guy entering the gravity chamber, and our hero follows the crowd to snoop around. In the midst of the chaos, the little protagonist decides to profit from his own actions and resolves to grab a points bracelet and a weighted vest before anything else. Putting the black bracelet on his wrist, he doubts the technology of the device to accurately calculate the student's sweat. On the iron shelf, the boy scorns the lightweight loads and goes straight for the heavyweight section. Faced with the 10 tons of solid alloy, he finds the whole thing sickening and concludes that trying to fight with it would be utter stupidity. Wearing the 5-ton armor, the boy's legs tremble at the initial jolt, but he understands the limits of his own body. In a dry test, he punches the air and vibrates with joy, feeling the perfect load to tear muscle and force evolution. Firm in his pose, the hero adjusts his jacket and accepts the penance of wearing the anchor on his body for the rest of the day. On his way to training, he questions the strength limits of the elite and imagines the ridiculous weights they must carry. Curious about the competition's tricks, the boy heads to the heart of the center in order to copy the schemes of the rich geniuses. Standing before the immense dome, he hears the shocked shouts of the crowd outside, stunned by the insanity of the big, barbaric figure inside. Pressed against the protective glass, the extras freak out at the scene of the big guy training in double gravity with the 3 tons intact on his back. With his arms crossed, our hero looks disappointed and considers the barbarian's resistance a bad joke, suffering with such a low charge. Behind him, the pair of school giants collapse in shame and leave the practice session, fearing public humiliation in front of the elite. Sighing deeply, the boy repudiates the cowardly attitude of his old adversaries and takes responsibility for stealing the show all by himself. Walking confidently towards the door, the boy ignores the advice of the common people to wait for the room to empty so as not to embarrass himself. Laughing at the cocky newcomer, the students conclude that he wasn't wearing a vest and call the protagonist shameless for trying to act like a monster for nothing. Ignoring the pointless comments, the hero enters the darkroom, completely focused on his goal of draining the expensive machine's energy for free. In a quick calculation, he deduces that the double gravity applied to the 5,000 kilograms would generate a weight of 10 tons and crush his body in seconds. By pressing the panel, the kid adjusts the machine to a 0.5 of gravity, focusing entirely on prolonged resistance training. As soon as the button is pressed, the invisible weight releases the pressure from the boy, and he endures the hellish ordeal standing there, his teeth clenched in pain. Outside, the audience is cracking up, pointing fingers and mocking the rookie's grimace of suffering, judging him as a born coward. Ignoring the laughter, the hero crosses his legs in the center of the room and plunges into meditation, feeling the absurd burning of energy. In the 2-hour time jump, the boy remains paralyzed in the same position under a dense, red aura that sets the environment ablaze. With wide eyes and soaked skin, he cuts the pressure and breaks into a smile of pure relief at surviving the test without fainting. Viewing the system's floating screen, he celebrates the vitality score of 130 achieved through the sweat of purebreds. Staring at the screen, the master's assistant freezes before the horrifying scene of carnage and murmurs, asking if the boy is real. Inside the arena, the hero rests his foot on the bloody carcass of a giant centipede and grumbles that beating weak creatures doesn't earn any martial points. Deciding to focus on the fat targets, the little protagonist spots a mid-level demonic tiger growling in the shadows and immediately charges forward with blood in his eyes. In a flash of magic, the boy activates the cloud step and slices through the tiger and a fire wolf in one fell swoop, with precise movements of his heavy spear. Landing amidst the carnage, he takes a deep breath, but his instincts are already screaming, warning of a sneaky attack coming from behind. Turning quickly, he plunges the spear shaft into the ground and blocks the fangs of a dark wolf that cowardly tried to pounce. With a chilling gaze, he summons the 9 echoes of thunder, and the boy's aura explodes, pushing the beasts back with brute force. Spinning his charged fist, he signals to the pack that it's his turn now and unleashes a sonic punch, shattering the concrete floor of the area. In an explosion of raw power, the technique sweeps 5 winged lions and several wolves to hell all at once, leaving only dust behind. Watching the massacre unfold, the leader of the bullies in the hallway swallows hard, stammering that if the gang had confronted the kid head-on, they would already be dead. Bathed in the glow of death, the hero uses the tip of his spear to tear open the carcass of a giant beetle, just to gain momentum and fly again. In a perfect leap, he intercepts a stone monkey in midair and delivers a punch to the creature, crushing its face in the brutal impact. Cutting to the exit hall, the students begin to emerge from the arena exhausted, and comparing their paltry scores of 20 and 30 points with their friends. Striking a pose, the true geniuses display their watches showing 280 points, and the crowd in the background cries with envy at the absurd records of the Trinity. Seeing the superiority of the elite, the extras sigh in defeat, accepting that fighting the monsters of the capital is a pure waste of time and life. Hours later, the arena dawns bathed in sunlight, and the ground reflects pools of blood, showing the terror that our hero spread throughout the night. Sitting atop a pile of giant scorpion carcasses, the little prot sighs heavily, his entire body dripping with sweat and exhaustion. Giving the watch screen a tap, he celebrates reaching exactly 700 points, and the system confirms with a perfectly round 700 martial arts points in the account. Doing the math, the boy admits he's broke, but smiles contentedly knowing he now has enough money to spend at the market. Walking with heavy legs, he arrives at the trading pavilion and tells the clerk that he wants to exchange his fortune for awesome items. Startled by the boy's destitute state, the girl answers suspiciously and shows him the catalog filled with magic pills and rare, level A techniques. Analyzing the panel, the hero realizes that the level A items cost around 2,000 points, and he concludes that he is too broke to afford such luxury. Changing the subject, he asks about the mental strength pills, and the girl explains that these are the most expensive in the store because they help awaken spiritual masters. When she reveals that the rank 4 pill costs exactly 500 points, he swallows hard, thinking the whole thing is highway robbery. Even though he's scared by inflation, the kid slams his fist on the table and orders a level 4 bill to be brought down right away, mercilessly hitting his own pocket. Stunned, the shop assistant stammers, thinking the beggar is joking, until he rubs his wrist on the reader and shows her a balance of 700. Handing over the scented box, the girl melts over the VIP client and asks intimately if he'll also want the famous dual-purpose spears. Returning to the humble room, the protagonist lays the velvet box on the bed while the system flashes, showing that he is 100 martial points away from the spiritual level exploding. Laughing to himself, he calculates that the magic contained in the medicine will compensate for the deficiency and accelerate his evolution to become a full-fledged wizard. Without a second thought, the boy swallows the shiny pill, closing his eyes and praying that the money spent will be worth every penny in the transformation of his spirit. Instantly, the magic of the pill bursts in the hero's stomach, and his body glows green, spreading a healing aura throughout all his injured veins. Breathing a sigh of relief, he lets out a groan of relief, feeling the mental fatigue vanish like smoke as his head feels light and racing. When he opens his eyes, the whole world seems different, and he realizes that his senses are 10 times sharper, feeling even the wind at the window. Quick on the trigger, he checks the system's screen and lets out a yell of joy seeing the spirit jump to 55 on the can. But then it dawns on him, and he curses the store, calling it mercenary, realizing that the medicine only went up 24 points and won't be enough to reach 100% at all. Lying on the bed with his arms crossed, the boy complains that he should have farmed 5 more points so he wouldn't be so dependent on the expensive pill. Accepting his momentary defeat, the protagonist vows that the next day he'll gather the rest of the money and end the game by turning off the lights to sleep, fueled by hatred. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in the instructor's meeting room is heating up, as the old-timers discuss the performance of the elite youngsters. In a mocking tone, the burly instructor asks why the master put the invasion team against the weak rookies, when they themselves can handle the job. The veteran next to him replies curtly that Master Chin's orders are not to be questioned, and that the plan to break the morale of the busybodies remains firm and strong. Laughing at the irony, one of the bald men points to our hero's file, and finds it strange that a little boy with a vitality of 120 is on the same list as the camp's elite. Reading the information, the guy gets scared and shows the group that the weakling kid is compatible with all 7 elements at once, and was recommended by the boss. Amused by the gossip, the big guy doubts the report, but then the door to the hall opens and the instructors assigned to the night mission enter looking like they're at a funeral. Surprised by the deplorable state of the guys, the bald man realizes that the team took a violent beating in the dead of night and doesn't understand by whom. Stuttering in pain and anger, the leader of the attack points to the paper and murmurs that he got beaten up by the rank 1 monster, revealing the danger the hero hides in his punch. Pulling at his hair in anger, the veteran master shouts in disbelief, asking how the entire elite team could have been crushed by a starting rank in a second. Taking a deep breath, the beaten instructor explains that the kid fused blue and red lightning bolts into a single blow, and dropped a bomb in their faces without giving them time to pray. Out of nowhere, Master Chin bursts into the room, bursting through the door, and the silent officer's eyes widen in shock as they listen to the gossip about the combined technique. With a macabre smile on his face, the old man runs his hand through his beard and praises the boy's fury, saying that beating him up will be the most fun event of the year. Back in the courtyard, the official brawl begins with the instructors invading the nighttime areas and throwing the students to the ground in a fit of pure hatred and flying kicks to show who's in charge. In the midst of the confusion, the well-dressed students from the capital and the ordinary students roll on the ground screaming in pain, not understanding where the surprise attack came from. Way back there, the hero's room door is broken down by a senior officer, who enters focused on putting an end to the arrogance of the little boy who humiliated the other instructors last night. Waking with a start, the boy blocks the metal club with his own fist and curses the intruder, calling him a coward for attacking in the middle of his peaceful sleep. Smiling confidently, the officer taunts, saying he'll love to crush such a daring rookie, and raises his arm to really lay into him. Cutting to the wide view, we see 3 explosions erupting in the accommodation areas, illuminating the camp while instructors are thrown through the shattered windows. With arms gleaming with power, the trinity of geniuses from the capital throws the attackers back into the street, celebrating that they confronted the elite without difficulty and ensured their survival. Observing from the ceiling, Master Chin murmurs that the performance of the rich was predictable, but his old eyes are fixed on the roof of our hero's building, waiting for the smoke to clear. Up on the roof, the senior instructor skids, breaking the tiles, and wipes the blood from his mouth, shocked that the boy withstood a head-on collision with a master who was almost rank 2. Pointing his dirty finger at the boy, he can't accept the idea that a kid without technique could repel his slicing water attacks using only physical strength. Bursting with energy, the little prod advances at the speed of light, saying that he's going to finish off the old man on display right there in exactly 3 seconds, so he doesn't waste any more sleep. Seething with hatred, the instructor grumbles that he won't let trash crush his pride and lunges forward with his knife, glowing with aquatic magic. In the blink of an eye, the hero dodges the swift, ghost-like slash using the steps of the clouds, and pierces the old man's guard without him even seeing where it came from. Wielding his newly purchased spear of purple and gold energy, the kid unleashes a colossal blow to the veteran's head using the double lightning and thunder technique. Blocked in sheer desperation, the guy feels his bone crack from the shockwave, feeling the pressure of a force dozens of times greater than that of a novice student. Coughing up blood, he despairs, questioning how the boy could hide the weight of 100 mountains in the body of a malnourished child. The protagonist's fury only intensifies, and he continues to mercilessly hammer away, shattering the guy's magical defense like crepe paper in the rain. Giving up on beating him, the old man yells for help on the radio, swearing that the little boy is hiding a secret power in his physique, and that the fire attribute, along with thunder, is destroying everything around him in an absurd heat. Flying high from the impact of the final blow, Master Chin enters the scene, grabbing the instructor before he can completely crack his head open on the ground. With a violent tug, the old man pulls the wounded subordinate away from the boy's final explosion and curses the guy, calling him a weakling and useless for losing to a combat trainee. Standing amidst the dust, the little protagonist sheathes his incandescent spear on his shoulder and laughs in the master's face, pointing at the power scoreboard while stepping on the broken tiles of the barracks he himself had demolished. Standing motionless, Master Chin reflects that the damage the brat caused far surpassed the battles the capital's elite waged down below with the other mediocre instructors. Through clenched teeth of irritation, he admits that dual talent is strong, but he doesn't understand how someone's physical limit can reach the ceiling of 200 in such a dirty, sick, and insane way. Explaining in a rushed manner, the sprawled officer argues that in addition to the 100 firepower, the boy is using level a technique non-stop and tirelessly, which must be stolen from some local lord. In the gossip circle downstairs, the elite students rush to see the destruction of the ceiling, but soon they hear the master's roar summoning everyone back to the court in 5 minutes or they'll be kicked out. Ending the charade, the old man shouts from the roof, ordering the little pro to show up tomorrow with the rich trio because he's decided that the training will turn into a tournament, and he wants to see if he can crush the 3 of them in the ring at the larger base. With a brutal blow of ice, the instructor creates a giant crater in an attempt to crush the boy. In a quick detour, the hero suspects that this guy might be an assassin from the 10,000 races trying to eliminate human geniuses. With the spear in hand, he admits that he still has no idea of the true power level of this mysterious enemy. Without giving time to think, the assailant advances, tearing up the ground with the weapon ready to pierce. Leaping into the attack, the old man mocks, saying that a beginner-level kid was very unlucky to run into him. The kid quickly realizes from the guy's speech that he's just a human martial artist trying to start trouble for no reason. With a smirk, the little protagonist thanks the visitor, saying that the intruder arrived at the perfect time to serve as a punching bag. Going all out, he calculates that he only needs to defeat this madman to earn the 5 points he needs to become a spiritual master. Shocked by the audacity, the veteran thinks the boy has lost his mind for trying to confront him head-on instead of backing down. With a violent bang, the 2 weapons collided, sending sparks flying everywhere in the middle of the night. Feeling the jolt, the old man's eyes widen when he sees that the boy's strength truly rivals that of an advanced student, and that the master wasn't lying. But panic sets in quickly when the old man realizes that the pressure on his hands is too heavy for a normal student to bear. With the spear forced downwards, the hero unleashes an absurd aura of fire and pushes the enemy back without mercy. Overcome with despair, the invader lets out a cry of agony, completely losing his defensive posture. In one swift movement, our boy breaks through the guy's guard and throws him through the air like a rag doll. Back on the ground, the veteran curses the kid, calling him a monster, outraged by his overwhelming brute force. At that moment, he decides to resort to magic, remembering that the fight isn't won with pure punches alone. The attacker's weapon suddenly glows with a sinister purple flame, illuminating the battlefield. Faced with the scene, the protagonist finds the situation interesting since it is the first time he has faced a lethal fire technique in practice. In a new leap, the old man taunts, asking how the brat will handle a devastating B-rank blow. With a scream at the top of his lungs, the madman unleashes the flaming slash, wanting to carbonize the hero instantly. Calmly, the boy covers his own spear with golden rays, deducing that the enemy's attack is far more dangerous than the techniques he has already copied. Soon the lightning and flames collide in the air, generating a shock wave that sweeps across the roof of the lodge. Firm as a rock, the protagonist blocks the monumental explosion without taking a single step back. The veteran, astonished, can't believe that his rank B strike was nullified using only raw thunder energy and without any rehearsed technique. Upon recognizing the rookie's frightening talent, the old man decides he'll have to fight seriously in the thunder attribute to avoid embarrassment. With a small smile, the hero confesses that he really doesn't know any lightning-focused techniques yet. But the game changes when he ignites red flames mixed with the weapon's beams, creating a chaotic combo. With wide eyes, the intruder stammers in panic, asking how on earth this is possible. In total shock, the guy yells that the kid is performing the legendary attribute fusion right in his face. Breaking into a cold sweat, the veteran recalls that fusing elements was considered an impossible myth, since energies always repel each other. At that very moment, fear takes over the old man's expression as he faces the brilliant death sentence. Without wasting any time, the hero advances, tearing through the wind, and tells the enemy to pray for his own soul. In sheer desperation, the instructor repeats the fire cut, trying to save his own skin from that out-of-control tractor. The little Pratinha easily deflects the magic attack with a simple slap of his sharp spear. In a brutal combo, he unleashes a colossal hammer blow of fire and thunder, crushing the enemy's defense from top to bottom. Upon receiving the blow, the old man spits blood, yelling that this destructive power is absurd. With a deafening thud, the impact creates a crater, throwing pieces of concrete everywhere. In the midst of the smoke, the kid stands victorious, while the system screen beeps 7 fresh martial arts points in the score. With a satisfied smile, he celebrates that he has finally gathered the exact amount of money to level up his mental magic and become a master. Far away, Grand Master Chin observes the building and thinks that the instructor has had enough time to teach the arrogant boy a lesson. Confident, the old man tells his assistant that he has already memorized the perfect sermon to make the boy give up on training the 7 elements together. Suddenly, a body crashes through the brick wall of the barracks, breaking the window and flying into the court. In a heavy fall, the madman lands right at the feet of the veteran master, raising a cloud of dust at the base. Completely unconscious and covered in bruises, the instructor shows that the hunter became the hunted and received the biggest beating of his life. Shocked by the scene, the master and the secretary immediately recognize the bruised face of the knocked-out officer. With a trembling voice, the girl concludes that if the veteran fell, it's because the rookie boy emerged victorious from the night ambush. Tearing through the sky like a meteor, our hero descends from the building, glowing with pure electrical energy. In a hard landing, he cracks the asphalt and faces the camp leader head-on, spear in hand. The surrounding scene reveals several other instructors lying on the ground after being beaten up by the 3 rich, elite kids. In a mocking tone, the big barbarian complains that the master should have sent a real challenge instead of those weaklings. Looking to the side, the strong man is surprised by our boy's presence and notices that 4 students survived the cowardly attack. Curious, the girl of wind and fire wonders who the crazy unknown was, who ended the mess faster than the trinity of geniuses themselves. During the body analysis, the assistant panics, warning that the guy who got beaten up by the protagonist was by far the strongest officer there. Scratching his beard, the old man reflects that the rich kid's victory was expected, but for the skinny beginner to beat a near-rank 2 master is utter madness. Intrigued, the master wonders if the boy resorted to a secret rank move, or if his physical strength simply swallowed the officer alive. Cutting off the thoughts, a technician runs desperately across the yard shouting that there's a huge problem in the monitoring room. Startled, the old man immediately asks if any inexperienced student died in the tasteless prank. In a desperate cry, the coach warns that the danger is Su-hong, who has activated a very rare elemental fusion technique in the midst of the chaos. Upon hearing the news, the Grandmaster's eyes widen, and it dawns on him how the kid crushed such an experienced opponent. With frantic gestures, the coach confirms that the rookie combined fire and thunder in a single attack to sweep away the elite instructor. Doubting his own sanity, the guy orders his boss to check the cameras immediately to prove he's not making up the story. With his face glued to the tablet, the old man analyzes the recording, sweating profusely with each frame of the brutal combat. Disgruntled, he recalls that the only genius in humanity to merge 2 attributes took 19 years of training, but the little pro did it in less than a month of classes. With his finger pointing to the sky, the old man decrees that the boy is no longer an ordinary prodigy, but a true divine dragon who has descended to Earth to change the course of war. Confused, the assistant questions whether the fusion technique is so overpowered that it would allow a beginner student to crush an advanced master without breaking a sweat. With her eyes wide open, she imagines the catastrophic disaster if that crazy kid manages to merge all 7 attributes at once in the future. With a heavy sigh, the master warns that trying to combine everything usually cripples the fighter, and if he gets stuck at a low level forever, his talent will go down the drain. However, reality hits when he understands that the boy is defying the laws of nature, and that total fusion would create a machine of mass destruction. In a vision of the future, the old man sees the boy becoming humanity's secret weapon and annihilating the beast emperors in a single move. At that moment, the secretary tells the boss to stop daydreaming because putting 7 elements together is nothing more than a children's book legend. Changing his mind on the spur of the moment, the master decides not to scold him and takes the blame for letting the hero train freely, even if it costs him his sanity in the end. Then the coach brings up another grim detail, warning that in addition to the magic, the kid's physical strength hit 120 points, humiliating the officer's body in a beating. Shocked, the girl does the cross-reference calculations and realizes that the skinny boy's physique surpasses that of the big, barbaric man, proving his mutant genetics. With a devilish grin, the old man announces that he's going to pit the elite trinity against the hero tomorrow morning, just to watch the circus burn in the arena. Focused on the plan, the old man warns that he's dying to see the reaction of the rich, arrogant people when the little monster from the countryside crushes their egos. Back in his room, our boy opens the illuminated tab on the system and pours his hard-earned points into the mental energy bar. Sitting on the cold floor, he closes his eyes and focuses on his breathing, while the notification of his transition to spiritual master dominates his vision. With a deep breath, he feels his mind bursting its limits and describes the cosmic sensation as something wonderful and indescribable. Gradually, the magic flows through his brain, and he compares the absurd telekinetic mastery to having gained an invisible third arm. The screen flashes blue, and the spiritual attribute finally breaks the 100-point barrier, confirming the success of the magic ritual. With his eyes glowing neon, the kid tests the turbocharged nerve connections in his own head to see what has changed. In a flash of magic, he levitates off the ground along with a heavy spear, floating just like the girl of the winds did in training. Amidst laughter, he's already planning to steal the rich girl's condensation technique and the big guy's deadly move at the morning tournament. The following morning, the sun rises brightly, and the barracks loudspeaker blares the order to form a line in the courtyard in exactly 1 minute. Desperate with the rules, the students run like crazy, stepping on each other's heels to avoid point penalties. On the way to the courtyard, the group cries their hearts out, cursing the extreme cowardice that the officers committed in the surprise night attack. Quietly, the little protagonist slips into the middle of the crowd with the most innocent face in the world, hiding his sleepy yawns. Standing on the platform, the instructor smiles, praising the flock, frightened that no one had the courage to be late for the general roll call. With a smug little smile, the rich kid with white hair mocks, swearing that the commoners would beg for mercy after the gratuitous beating. With his hand raised, an indignant student denounces on the microphone that the instructor played dirty and hit him in the groin while he was only in his underwear. In a playful manner, the rich, white-haired kid asks if, on a real battlefield, the recruit would ask the monster to close its eyes while getting dressed. The whole group bursts out laughing and nicknames the poor, traumatized guy brother underpants in front of the entire camp. With his arms crossed, the hero understands the logic of survival, but fully agrees with the justified hatred of the lads for getting beaten up for no reason. To quell the revolt, the officer decrees that the day will be focused on an exhaustive practical test for everyone to prove their worth without excuses. In explaining the test, he warns that modern machines will scan everything in the body, measuring vitality, strength, mental power, and pure speed. After the slot machine session, the fiery girl stirs things up, saying that the real showdown is about to begin in the simulated combat ranking. The crowd accepts their miserable fate and gossips that the top 3 spots already belong to rich geniuses, and the rest will fight like dogs over bones. Focused on what matters, our boy ignores the general pessimism, wanting only to know the secret prize for whoever comes out on top of the podium. After clearing his throat, the Grand Master takes the lead and orders the troop of students to march toward the evaluation center. Entering the colossal warehouse, the herd comes face to face with a sinister armored machine designed to withstand rank 2 attacks without breaking. With a keen eye, the assistant whispers in the boss's ear, warning that the merger genius is back there, huddled up, pretending not to exist. Catching the old man's mysterious gaze, the boy lets out a discreet smile, thinking that the old man had already become his #1 fan. But the smile fades instantly when his intuition kicks in, and he realizes that the master is setting a special stage to burn him alive. And the final bombshell explodes when the master yells that the grand champion will be able to drag any rank a technique from the sacred collection, completely free of charge. The entire gymnasium stops breathing, drooling over the $1 million chance to get their hands on a rank a technique scroll. An instructor whispers to the side, commenting that skill of this level is a relic that even the nobility fight to have free access to. With eyes burning with determination, the prodigy girl mentally vows that that prize will go into her pocket no matter what. With an arrogant little smile, the wind kid already counts on victory being guaranteed based on his absurd speed. Faced with the award, our hero clenches his fists, cracking his knuckles, determined to stop hiding his true intentions and crush the competition. From his privileged position, the old man's gaze hardens, eager to witness the true extent of the violence the country boy is capable of delivering on the machine.